Chapter 532. Lu Yi kept swallowing spirit pills, refining them into his own spirit chi, and then pouring it into the spirit tattoos on his back. His aura gradually became violent. Even the Ninth Order masters gathered around him felt a trace of danger from this aura. At this moment, Lu Yi gave them the feeling that he was a volcano that could erupt at any time. Is he going to self-destruct? Someone asked in surprise. Surrounded by so many myriad Demon Ridge cultivators, even a Ninth Order cultivator like Lu Yi wouldn't be able to escape, let alone a Third Order cultivator. Instead of being killed, he might as well commit suicide. Ordinary cultivators naturally didn't have the means to self-destruct, but Lu Yi was a spirit tattoo master. Who knew what strange abilities he had? It had to be said that many people had such suspicions, mainly because Lu Yi's current state was too abnormal. But if he really wanted to self-destruct, he could have done so long ago. Why bother hiding? He's accumulating his strength. Someone exclaimed, he wants to drag everyone down with him. These words woke everyone up from their stupor, and the expressions of all the Ninth Order cultivators turned solemn. The myriad Demon Ridge cultivators gathered outside were even more frightened as they retreated in unison. The more dangerous Lu Yi's aura was, the greater the power of his self-destruction would be. He had been accumulating his strength for a long time without taking action. Obviously, he wanted to raise the power of his self-destruction to the limit. With so many myriad Demon Ridge cultivators present, he would definitely be able to drag some of them down with him. Wishful thinking, Wei Kei said as he rushed in front of Lu Yi in a few steps and kicked out, sending Lu Yi flying. He then shouted, "Beat him up!" As soon as his voice fell, many myriad Demon Ridge cultivators' eyes lit up, thinking that it was a good idea. Lu Yi wanted to use the power of his self-destruction to drag some people down with him, so they only needed to beat him into the air. Once he was in the air, even if he self-destructed, it would be difficult for him to pose any threat to others. Another person sent out a kick, sending Lu Yi's body flying into the air. Following that, streams of light from Imperial artifacts flew up and bombarded Lu Yi's body. Lu Yi's figure, shrouded in golden light, was sent flying in the air, rising steadily. Soon, he was a few dozen meters above the ground. Every time his body was about to fall, there would always be an Imperial equipment accurately attacking him, sending him flying again. As far as the eye could see, Lu Yi's figure rose and fell in the air like a leaf swaying in the wind. Sure Mu felt dizzy and disoriented for a moment. But he didn't have to worry about getting injured as he had the protection of the golden body token. So, he simply closed his eyes and continued to swallow pills to restore his spiritual power. 20 miles away, Li Baxian and Feng Yuechan were quietly lying in ambush. The commotion reached their ears. Li Baxian focused his vision and immediately saw Lu Yi's miserable state. He immediately clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. His eyes turned blood-red. Seeing his junior brother suffer such humiliation, yet being unable to do anything, how could he not feel grief and indignation in his heart? He and Feng Yuechan had already contacted some people who were lurking nearby, but they still didn't have enough people. If they acted rashly at this time, not only would they not be able to save Lu Yi, they would also be in trouble. So, before they had enough strength, no one dared to act rashly. Even if they were angry and unwilling, they could only continue to endure and continue to contact helpers. Suddenly, a figure passed by them. This person was sneaky, and the spiritual energy fluctuations from his body showed that he was only a second-order Cloud River Realm cultivator. This kind of cultivation was very rare in the current hunting ground. After so many days, the first-order and second-order cultivators had basically been killed. Unless they had the protection of a master, it would be very difficult for them to survive in the hunting ground. This person was only a second-order Cloud River Realm cultivator, but he was able to survive alone. He was undoubtedly a ghost cultivator. Only a ghost cultivator would have such ability. When he passed by Li Baxin and Feng Yuechan, Ghost Shadow concealed himself and continued to move forward for more than 10 kilometers. When he looked up, he saw a disheveled figure rising and falling in the air. After staring blankly for a while, Ghost Shadow sighed in his heart. It should be Lu Yi without a doubt. Although the other party was wearing a ghost mask and his face couldn't be seen clearly, the figure was exactly the same as in his memory, so he could basically confirm it. Moreover, with so many masters from Myriad Demon Ridge gathered here, it was impossible for them to mistake Lu Yi's identity. It was a pity. A dignified overlord of Spirit Stream, who could call for wind and rain in the Spirit Stream battlefield, single-handedly suppressing many Myriad Demon Ridge sects and making them unable to raise their heads. Wherever he went, the Myriad Demon Ridge sects would tremble in fear. Now, he was going to suffer such humiliation. Even though he was from the enemy camp, Ghost Shadow couldn't help but feel sad. Therefore, it was better to not be in the limelight, otherwise it was easy to die prematurely. This was also the reason why he chose the Ghost Cultivator sect. Ghost Cultivators were the best at hiding, and no matter what kind of dangerous environment they faced, they would have a chance to protect themselves. So what if he was the overlord of Spirit Stream? So what if he was the Spirit Stream champion? In the end, wasn't he the one who was still alive, and the other party was about to die? Ghost Shadow had specially come to watch the show. If it was any other show, he wouldn't care. With his personality, he wasn't someone who liked to join in on the fun. However, this matter was related to Lu Yi, and he really couldn't hold back his curiosity. In the Spirit Stream list, only Lu Yi could convince him. He had fought with Lu Yi before. Not to mention that they had a battle of patience when the latter rushed into the Myriad Poison Forest. He had almost died at the latter's hands. Furthermore, he had entered the Cloud River battlefield earlier than Lu Yi, but he was still only a second-order Cloud River Realm cultivator, while Lu Yi was already a third-order. This was unreasonable. Trapped in the hunting ground, he didn't have any connections as a second-order ghost cultivator, so he could only hide. Fortunately, he had managed to survive until now. At this moment, he was able to witness the end of such a young hero. This trip was not in vain. After today, Lu Yi would no longer exist in this world. But then again, the Golden Body Token was truly amazing. Even with so many Myriad Demons Ridge Masters taking action, they were only able to knock Lu Yi into the air, unable to harm him. While thinking about this, Ghost Shadow continued to walk forward. Suddenly, Ghost Shadow's body froze. He didn't know why, but there was a palpitating feeling surging in the depths of his soul. This feeling was constantly warning him that there was a great danger ahead, and that he absolutely couldn't move forward. This could be said to be a natural talent that Ghost Shadow was born with. He had an extremely strong premonition towards some hidden dangers. This had nothing to do with his cultivation or the strength of his mind. It was completely an instinctive feeling. Since he started cultivating, he had relied on this feeling to avoid many fatal threats. Ghost Shadow couldn't figure out why there was such a strong sense of danger in this place where so many masters gathered in the Myriad Demons Ridge. He stood in place, sweat slowly seeping out of his forehead. After a long while, he raised his foot and took a step forward. But it was this step that caused his pupils to suddenly shrink, and the warning in his heart was unprecedentedly strong. Never before had he felt such a strong premonition of danger. This feeling seemed to be singing the melody of death in his ears, warning him that if he continued to move forward, he would undoubtedly die. Fine beads of sweat gathered and slid down his cheeks. Ghost Shadow immediately turned around, no longer caring about hiding his body. He used all his strength to flee into the distance as fast as he could. A moment later, Li Baxin and Feng Yuechan, who were hiding in the shadows, saw the figure that had just walked past flee in a panic. The two of them were puzzled, not knowing why this Myriad Demons Ridge ghost cultivator had such a panicked appearance. At this moment, a strong fluctuation of spiritual energy came from the distance. Li Baxian looked up and saw that Lu Yi, who had been floating in the air, was suddenly surrounded by dazzling flames. These dark red flames even covered the golden light of the golden body token, making him look like he was burning. As the flames surged, complex runes gathered around Lu Ye's body and spread out in all directions. This is... Feng Yuechan stared at this scene in surprise, not knowing what Lu Yi was doing. At this time, the myriad demons' Ridge Masters also realized that the situation was bad. The surging spiritual energy fluctuations from Lu Ye's body were indescribably violent, making them mistakenly think that Lu Yi was about to self-destruct. Moreover, looking at the scene before this self-destruction, the power would definitely be immense. For a time, everyone's attacks became fiercer and fiercer. Lu Yi, who was originally only a few dozen meters above the ground, was once again pushed upwards. It wasn't until he was blasted nearly 2,000 meters that he reached his limit. This was also the limit of the Ninth Order's artifact manipulation ability. Any further and they would have difficulty controlling their own artifact manipulation. At such a distance, even if Lu Yi really self-destructed, it would be difficult for him to pose any threat to them. However, Lu Yi had no intention of self-destructing from beginning to end. He just wanted to use his strongest trump card. The light that had once bloomed on the Spirit Stream battlefield would finally reappear on the Cloud River battlefield today. The world energy around Lu Ye's body surged as his yin and yang qi continued to spread out in all directions, wrapping around his figure. And because of the protection of the golden body token, no matter how fierce the attacks of the myriad demons' Ridge Masters below were, it was difficult to stop Lu Ye's movements. The most they could do was prevent Lu Yi from falling. The accumulated spirit qi in the spirit gathering rune on his back was quickly emptied, and a moment later, the spirit qi in the spirit gathering rune on his chest was also emptied. Lu Ye's spirit qi surged endlessly, and his spirit qi flowed out like a flood that had broken through a dam. As his spirit qi was consumed, the runes covering his body became denser and more mysterious. He found that he had been wrong before. When he used this move with Tianqi's cultivation, he had also constructed 2 spirit-gathering spirit tattoos to store world energy. At that time, he thought that as long as his cultivation reached the Cloud River realm, even if it wasn't too high, as long as he reached the 5th or 6th order, he should be able to use this trump card at will. But now, it seemed that he had been wrong. Now that he was a 3rd order Cloud River realm cultivator, he had still consumed the accumulated world energy from the 2 spirit-gathering spirit tattoos, which was far from enough. It could be seen that the higher one's cultivation, the greater the consumption to use this trump card, but correspondingly, the more powerful it would be. To be continued. Chapter 533. 2,000 meters up in the air, Lu Ye's body was shrouded in flames, obscuring the golden light of the golden body token. Accompanied by the surging flames, the mysterious and complex yin and yang spirit runes quickly spread out and merged. The spiritual energy stored in the 2 spirit-gathering spirit runes was exhausted, and the spiritual energy in Lu Ye's body was also rapidly depleted. It wasn't until nearly half of his spiritual energy was consumed that the complex spirit runes were completed. Many myriad demon ridge cultivators stared at the strange scene in the air in a daze. What entered their field of vision was an oval egg that looked like a beast egg, but on the surface of this egg, there were a large number of fine and complex lines flashing, wrapping around Lu Ye's entire body. The flashing light was like a strange breath. As the Ninth Order Masters continued to attack, the egg floated up and down in the air. What the hell is this? Everyone was bewildered, but they could all feel the violent and dangerous aura coming from the spirit energy egg. Some people had a bad premonition and had already begun to flee. Even the Ninth Order Masters were on guard at this moment, their skin tingling as if they were being pricked by needles. At this time, inside the spirit energy egg, Lu Yi was still pushing his spiritual energy, pouring all of his remaining spiritual energy into the spirit runes until the river of spiritual energy in his body completely dried up. The light of the spirit energy egg became more and more dazzling, its fiery red color like a great sun hanging in the sky. "Something's wrong, run!" a Ninth Order master shouted, no longer daring to stay in place. Seeing this, many Ninth Order masters scattered and fled. No matter what Lu Yi was doing, the scene in front of them was beyond their imagination, and it was more important to leave this place as soon as possible. Without any external bombardment, the spirit energy egg 2,000 meters up in the air quickly fell down. As it fell, dense spiderweb-like cracks suddenly appeared on the surface of the egg, as if something was about to break out. A terrifying aura spread out in all directions as the spiritual energy egg cracked, causing the void to distort. Kacha, dense sounds rang out, until a certain moment, a clear and loud cry resounded through the sky, deafening everyone. As the cry rang out, the spirit energy egg completely shattered. The flames surged and rolled. From the flames, 2 huge wings appeared first, followed by a beautiful and vigorous body. Ghost Shadow, who had already fled tens of kilometers away, could not help but tremble when he heard this familiar voice. He turned around in a panic, and the scene that entered his eyes made his body and mind tremble. It was a beautiful creature with a wingspan of more than 300 meters and a body length of more than 600 meters. Its beautiful figure dragged a long tail and was wrapped in raging flames, bringing with it the aura of death. The Fire Phoenix spirit mark had reappeared in the world. He had seen this thing before in the Spirit Stream battlefield, and it had also been created by Luya. At that time, Luya had charged through the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators' defensive line and charged into the Myriad Poisons forest. With this move, he had killed nearly 200 cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge. At that time, Ghost Shadow had escaped in advance to avoid the calamity. After that, for a long time, that beautiful figure was the source of his nightmares. The scene he saw today was so similar. The difference was that the Fire Phoenix he saw this time was bigger and more lifelike. The feathers on the Fire Phoenix's body could be clearly seen. This was undoubtedly related to the increase in Luya's cultivation. The last time he used this move, he was only a Heaven 7th Realm cultivator, but now he was a 3rd Order Cloud River Realm cultivator. The difference in cultivation was still huge. Ghost Shadow was very glad that he had run away early. Otherwise, he would have been involved in this crisis and would have been doomed. The Fire Phoenix's figure covered the sky as it swooped down from the sky. Its violent aura made the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators feel as if a mountain was pressing down on them. The scorching heat waves made them despair. It closed the distance of 600 meters in the blink of an eye. Just as the beautiful figure was about to hit the ground, it suddenly changed direction and flew past the ground only a few dozen meters away. Its huge wings flapped gently. Wherever they passed, space distorted and flames swept out. Even the ground began to melt. Screams suddenly rang out and then came to an abrupt end. Even if the Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators started to flee before they saw the Fire Phoenix, it was too late. Wherever the huge figure passed, the flames engulfed them and the flowers of life quickly withered. This kind of power was something only Ninth Order Masters could barely resist, but even then, they were only able to resist for a short while. It seemed like an instant, but it also seemed like thousands of years. When the Fire Phoenix's figure uncontrollably slammed into a hill, all that was left behind was scorched earth and withered corpses. The chaotic situation slowly calmed down. The fleeing Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators stopped in their tracks with lingering fear. Those who were not on the Fire Phoenix's path secretly rejoiced that they had survived, but those who were on the Fire Phoenix's path were not so lucky. Amidst the scorched earth, a figure stood. This person was a Ninth Order cultivator, but at this moment, he stood motionless. His body was scorched black, and his hair and clothes were all burned away. Although his vitality was still there, he was seriously injured. With such injuries, he had to find a medical cultivator to treat him quickly, otherwise, he would not live for long. This person was unlucky as he was in the path of the fire phoenix. Streams of light shot up into the sky as the Ninth Order masters who were lucky enough to survive rushed towards the place where the fire phoenix fell, arriving a short time later. Looking around, all they saw was Lu Yi lying on the scorched earth with a pale face, his eyes staring blankly towards the sky, as if he didn't even have the strength to move. However, with their previous experience, no one dared to get too close to Lu Yi at this moment. Only the heavens knew what kind of tricks he had up his sleeve. Some people gnashed their teeth in fear. They thought that Lu Yi was going to self-destruct, but who knew that he had such an amazing method up his sleeve? This time, countless people from Myriad Devil Ridge had died. But even if they knew Lu Yi's plan, they could not stop it. With the protection of the Golden Body Token, Lu Yi did not have to worry about them attacking him. Unless they fled in advance, Lu Yi could take advantage of this opportunity to escape. Lu Yi turned a deaf ear to this person's curses. At this moment, he only felt dizzy and weak, as if he had been hollowed out. Not only that, the skin on the surface of his body cracked inch by inch, and his entire body was dyed blood red. The last time he used the Fire Phoenix Spirit Tattoo was like this, and this time, his strength was still not enough. The aftereffects of using the Fire Phoenix Spirit Tattoo were too great. With his current strength, as long as he had enough time and spiritual energy, it would not be difficult for him to activate it, but it was almost impossible for him to control it. Otherwise, he would not have ended up here. He would have used the Fire Phoenix to chase down the Ninth Order cultivators and killed as many as he could. Red streams of light flew over from a certain direction like fireflies and fell into the battlefield mark on the back of his hand. These were the merit points contributed by the dead Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators. At the same time, on the hunter list hanging high in the sky, Lu Yi's name, which had almost fallen out of the top 10, flashed slightly and jumped to the top. Originally, his hunting points were 7,110 points, but now they had increased to 15,620 points, which was more than double of what it was before. With such a huge number of hunting points, he deserved to be at the top of the list. One had to know that the original first place had less than 9,000 points. The increase of so many hunting points undoubtedly meant that Lu Yi's Fire Phoenix had killed at least 40 to 50 Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators just now. Compared to the total number of Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators gathered in the vicinity, this number was very small, less than 10%. The main reason was that the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators had fled in all directions when they saw that the situation was not good. The Fire Phoenix could only kill enemies in one direction and could not do anything to those in other directions. Kacha, there seemed to be a slight crisp sound that rang out in the depths of everyone's heart. At the same time, the blood-red light curtain that shrouded the world shattered like a mirror, and dazzling sunlight shone down. Lu Yi narrowed his eyes. The hunting ground was closed. And coincidentally, it closed after he regained the top of the hunter list. Lu Yi would never believe that this had nothing to do with his luck. Things could not be so coincidental. There had to be a heaven's will at work here. But for his current situation, the closing of the hunting ground seemed to have little meaning because there were so many Ninth Order cultivators surrounding him. He was like a lamp that had run out of oil, so there was no way he could escape. The closing of the hunting ground caused a commotion, especially the Ninth Order cultivator who was originally in first place. At this moment, he was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. If the hunting ground had closed 10 breaths earlier, he would have been at the top of the hunter list and would have been rewarded with a Grade A Spring Spirit and 9 Golden Spirit lots. But because of this difference of 10 breaths, he missed out on a Grade A Spring Spirit. How could he not be angry? He only felt that the heavens were blind. What was the point of letting a person who was bound to die become the top of the hunter list? Many golden lights fell from the sky and landed on the Ninth Order cultivators present, including Lu Yi. The golden light fell on the back of his hand and formed a mark. This was a reward from heaven's will. At the same time, Lu Yi understood that with this golden mark, he could exchange it for the reward he deserved in the Heaven's Will Treasure House. It turned out that this was how Heaven's Will Treasure House rewarded him. He thought that it would directly give him all kinds of benefits, but now it seemed that he would need to go to the Heaven's Will Treasure House himself. This was more reasonable. After all, there would always be some people who would not be able to receive the rewards from Heaven's will at this time. When he was free and convenient, he could go and get his reward. But it was also because of this that many myriad demon ridge masters felt helpless. After the golden body token disappeared, Lu Yi would die without a doubt, and the reward for being at the top of the hunter list would naturally disappear with him. It was a pity. As for keeping him alive for the time being and waiting for him to take out the reward, that was even more impossible. After Lu Ye's torment just now, even the myriad demon ridge cultivators would dare to keep him alive. They were all waiting for the golden body token to disappear. Chapter 534. Like a dying fish on the scorched earth, Lu Yi gulped and coughed from time to time. After a while, he finally recovered some strength. Looking around, he saw the angry and fearful faces of the Ninth Order cultivators. Lu Yi, you really deserve to die. Wei Kei's voice rang out as he gritted his teeth. Lu Yi followed the voice and saw that he was in a sorry state. Some of his hair seemed to have been burnt by the fire, making him look extremely comical. Wei Kei was also unlucky. He was swept away by the aftermath of the Fire Phoenix Spirit Rune. Although he wasn't injured, the shock was real. Fortunately, he wasn't in the path of the Fire Phoenix Spirit Rune. Otherwise, even if he didn't die, he would have been seriously injured. Lu Yi coughed violently again and forced himself to sit up. The blood that seeped out of his body gathered into a dark red pool below him. To be honest, I've been reading books recently. I've been switching sources and reading aloud. Both Android and Apple works. Looking at Wei Kei indifferently, Lu Yi said, "You really want to kill me?" Wei Kei coldly snorted, "Do you think you can still live?" Seduso, CC starter Lu Yi didn't say anything. Wei Kei continued, "Grand Sky Alliance seems to have some masters lurking around to save you. But with the current situation, do they dare to come? You're dead. Don't have any more fantasies." "Is that so?" Lu Yi lowered his head. The long hair in front of his forehead formed a shadow under the sunlight, blocking his eyes. He raised his hand and tapped on the battlefield mark, sending a message to Li Baxian, "Fourth senior brother, there's no need to save me. I'll leave first. Let's meet again in a month." 20 miles away, Li Baxian, who was paying attention to the situation, immediately received the message. After checking, his expression became surprised. If only looking at the first half of the sentence, his junior brother was already prepared to die. But with the last sentence, it was different. The reason why they agreed to meet again in a month was because there was a 1-month restriction after leaving the Cloud River battlefield. During this 1 month, cultivators couldn't enter the Cloud River battlefield. This was the rule of Heaven's secret. No one could change it. So, the meaning behind Lu Ye's words was obvious. He was leaving the Cloud River battlefield. "Junior brother, what are your plans?" Li Baxian quickly asked. Soon, Lu Ye's message arrived. "Senior brother, the only thing that restricted me was the hunting ground. Now, the hunting ground is closed." Li Baxian was slightly startled, but then he suddenly realized that he had been worried about Lu Ye's safety all this time. He had been thinking of ways to contact people to rescue Lu Yi, causing him to become a little muddle-headed. That's right, all this while, the only thing that restricted little junior brother was the hunting ground. Now that the hunting ground was closed, who could restrict him? Those guys from the Myriad Demon's Ridge thought that they could kill Lu Yi at will after the effect of the golden body token disappeared. They didn't know that Lu Yi could leave at any time without the restriction of the hunting ground. However, the price he had to pay was rather high. Moreover, not everyone could imitate this method. But no matter how great the price was, it was nothing compared to his life. As for whether Lu Yi had the qualifications, Li Baxian did not doubt his junior brother's qualifications. If even his junior brother did not have such qualifications, then no one else in the entire Cloud River battlefield could. His little junior brother was someone who had bought 2 aperture replenishing pills, which were worth 150,000 merit points each for him. Among cultivators in the same realm, there were very few people who had more capital than his junior brother. Moreover, he had just killed so many Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators in one fell swoop, earning him nearly 10,000 merit points. Retreat. Thinking so, Li Baxian immediately called out to Feng Yuechan. Feng Yuechan was extremely surprised. "Senior brother, are we not going to care about junior brother Lu? Junior brother has his own way of escaping. Don't worry about him." The tension and worry in Li Baxian's heart were swept away, and he felt indescribably relaxed. Feng Yuechan was surprised, but soon she seemed to remember something. "Junior brother Lu wants to use that method to leave the Cloud River battlefield?" Li Baxian nodded. "That's right." Feng Yuechan suddenly sighed. "Junior brother Lu is really rich. No wonder his cultivation speed is so fast." As the two spoke, they quickly left. At the same time, Li Baxian didn't forget to send a message to the Ninth Order helpers he had invited, telling them not to act anymore. On the scorched earth, after Lu Yi contacted Li Baxian, he began to contact Xia Qianqian. He didn't know Wei Kei's name, or which sect he came from, but Xia Qianqian should know. A moment later, he received Xia Qianqian's reply. "Cloud Sun Sect Wei Kei." Lu Yi raised his head and gave Wei Kei a deep look. When their eyes met, Wei Kei frowned. He could see some ill intentions in Lu Ye's eyes. However, in the current situation, he was not afraid of Lu Yi. Based on Lu Ye's current situation, it would be difficult for him to even stand up. It would be impossible for him to use such a shocking method like before. "Does everyone want to kill me?" Lu Yi looked around. Someone shouted in a low voice, "What nonsense are you spouting? When the golden body token expires, you'll die. You'd better pray that the golden body token lasts longer so you can live a little longer." Lu Yi sighed. "That's possible." With his hands on his knees, Lu Yi slowly stood up and staggered slightly. "I'll have to disappoint everyone." Someone else sneered. "Lu Yi, you've already reached this point. Why are you still trying to be mysterious? Without the golden body token, you would have died hundreds of times already, yet you're still in the mood to talk nonsense here. If I were you, I would quickly dig a hole, otherwise no one will come to bury you." "That's true." Lu Yi nodded. "Without the golden body token, I would have died hundreds of times already, but who told me to have the golden body token?" His voice gradually became louder. "This Lu will remember everyone's blessings today, and if there is a chance in the future, I will definitely repay you." Such shameless boasting angered everyone, thinking that Lu Yi had lost his mind and didn't understand the situation. He might not even survive today, so what was the point of talking about the future? Just as they were thinking this, Lu Yi suddenly looked up at the sky, raised his hand and shouted, "Blue Blood Sect's disciple Lu Yi respectfully requests Heaven's Secret to bestow upon me the Heaven's Secret Pillar." As soon as he finished speaking, an extremely dazzling blue light suddenly bloomed from the back of his hand. The blue light shot straight into the sky, triggering Heaven's Secret. As soon as Lu Yi finished speaking, the expressions of the surrounding Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators all changed greatly, especially a few who suddenly had a look of realization. From the beginning, they vaguely felt that they had overlooked something, but first, the Fire Phoenix Spirit tattoo was intimidating, and then there was the huge bounty on Lu Yi's head, so they didn't have time to think about it. It was only now that they finally reacted. That's right, Lu Yi could ask for the Heaven's Secret Pillar, and this was the only way he could escape with his life. The Heaven's Secret Pillar was bestowed by Heaven's Secret. Generally speaking, each Heaven's Secret business alliance had its own Heaven's Secret Pillar, as did each of the major sects, and the encampments of the Spirit Stream battlefield. These were all free of charge. However, there were also some Heaven's Secret Pillars that had to be paid a price. For example, the Heaven's Secret Pillars in some of the spiritual lands in the Cloud River battlefield. These Heaven's Secret Pillars weren't born with the spiritual lands, but were instead invited by cultivators. This was because cultivators could use the Heaven's Secret Pillars to travel between the Cloud River battlefield and their own sections. If a Heaven's Secret Pillar was invited from a spiritual land, it would be much more convenient for cultivators to do things. They could use the Heaven's Secret Pillar to enter the Heaven's Secret Treasure Vault to buy things, and even if they encountered danger that they couldn't resist, they could use the Heaven's Secret Pillar to return to the 9 states to take refuge. However, looking at the entire Cloud River battlefield, there weren't many spiritual lands that had Heaven's Secret Pillars, and only a few large spiritual lands had them. This was because the price to invite a Heaven's Secret Pillar was very high, 100,000 merit points. It was very difficult for a few cultivators to gather such a huge amount of merit points, especially Cloud River tier cultivators. Normally, if they had some merit points, they would go to the Heaven's Secret Business Alliance to auction spirit lots to raise their cultivation. At most, they would keep some for backup. No one would be too rich. Only large spiritual lands with more people had the capital to invite a Heaven's Secret Pillar. The cost of the merit points would be split equally between everyone, so the cost wouldn't be too high. This was also the reason why Feng Yuechan sighed at Lu Ye's wealth when she learned of his plan. A single person with 100,000 merit points. Looking at the entire Cloud River battlefield, one couldn't find more than 5 people with 100,000 merit points, and Lu Yi happened to be one of them. Before the hunting ground opened, he had 92,250 merit points. Now, he had 106,120 merit points. This number was 30,000 more merit points than when he had first entered the Cloudy River battlefield. It was all thanks to the Fire Phoenix spirit pattern. Otherwise, he would still be a bit away from 100,000 merit points. With enough merit points, he would have the qualifications to invite Heaven's Secret to bestow him a Heaven's Secret Pillar. Just as he had said to Li Baxian, the hunting ground had always been the limiting factor. The hunting ground's blood-red light shrouded the entire area. Inside the hunting ground, one could only enter and not leave. Thus, while the hunting ground was open, it was useless even if he invited a Heaven's Secret Pillar. However, the hunting ground was now closed. If he wanted to leave, no one could stop him. As Lu Ye's voice fell, the surrounding Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators finally understood his plan. Xiao Yang angrily shouted, "Quickly stop him!" As soon as he finished speaking, he slashed his saber towards Lu Yi. A dazzling saber light filled the air. The attack of a 9th Order Master was extremely powerful. They had paid a great price to finally trap Lu Yi here. Now, they only needed to wait for the Golden Body Token's effect to disappear before they could kill him. However, just as they were about to reap the fruits of victory, Lu Yi actually wanted to invite a Heaven's Secret Pillar? How could they agree to this? If he really invited a Heaven's Secret Pillar and used it to escape the Cloud River battlefield, then all their previous efforts would have been in vain. Because of this, all those who had died would have died in vain. When this matter spread out, they would become the laughingstock of Grand Heaven Alliance. What a rich guy! 100,000 merit points. Xiao Yang had never accumulated so many merit points in his life. As his voice fell, a series of attacks flew towards Lu Yi from all directions. At the same time, a pillar of light descended from the sky and wrapped around Lu Yi. Many attacks were blocked by the pillar of light. Within the pillar of light, Lu Yi coldly looked around, as if he wanted to remember the faces of these 9th Order Masters. Chapter 535. The pillar of light soared into the sky and wrapped around Lu Yi. A powerful airflow surged, causing his hair and clothes to flutter in the wind. Attacks came from all directions, but they were all blocked by the pillar of light. Hong. Something fell from the sky and landed in front of Lu Yi. In an instant, a violent shockwave swept out from where Lu Yi was standing. The surrounding myriad Demon Ridge cultivators were thrown off their feet by the impact. The group of people stabilized themselves with great difficulty. When they looked up again, they saw that Lu Yi had already raised his hand and pressed against the Heaven's Fate pillar in front of him. "Until we meet again." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure quickly faded and disappeared. All the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators stared at him. No matter how unwilling they were, there was nothing they could do. In the end, Lu Yi escaped. This time, there were at least 800 myriad Demons Ridge cultivators participating in the hunt for Lu Yi. There were no less than 29th Order cultivators. With such a large lineup, not to mention a 3rd Order Cloud River Realm cultivator, even a true Lake Realm cultivator would be able to put up a fight. But in the end, they still failed. The rare golden body token, the vermilion bird, one of the 4 symbols divine beasts, which had the power to destroy heaven and earth, and the Heaven's Fate pillar was summoned by Lu Yi alone. Any one of these things was enough to shock anyone, but they all appeared on one person. But it was precisely because of these incredible things that Lu Yi, a 3rd Order cultivator, was able to escape in the end. Looking at the Heaven's Fate pillar descending from the sky, the group of 9th Order cultivators had ugly expressions. The hunting ground was closed, and Lu Yi had escaped. It was meaningless to blame the heavens and others. After a while, many myriad Demon Ridge cultivators dispersed, leaving behind only the Heaven's Fate pillar, which recorded all the previous events. With just a 3rd Order cultivation, Lu Yi fought against nearly 1,000 myriad Demon Ridge cultivators, including many 8th and 9th Order cultivators, and still managed to escape. It was foreseeable that after this battle, Lu Yi's name would spread far and wide. In the future, when he entered the Cloud River battlefield again, there would be many people watching him. In the divine secret palace of the Ao Mountain of the military province, Lu Yi's blood-stained figure suddenly appeared. He staggered slightly and hurriedly raised his hand to support the divine secret pillar in front of him so that he would not fall down. When cultivators entered the Cloudy River battlefield from their sect, they had many choices. They could choose the location they wanted to enter, as long as that location was connected to the Tianji pillar. However, if one wanted to return from the Cloud River battlefield, they could only return to their sect's Heaven's Secret Palace. There was no other choice. This was related to the mark on the back of a cultivator's hand. Find second senior sister," he ordered softly. He immediately flashed out of Hu Po's body and ran outside. A moment later, Shui Yuan's figure rushed into Divine Secret Hall and saw Lu Yi's miserable appearance at a glance, causing her brow to furrow. "How did you end up like this?" "It's a long story." Lu Yi squeezed out a smile at her, forcefully clinging onto his last shred of clarity. "Senior sister, save me." As soon as his voice fell, his body went limp and fell to the ground. Even though he was now a 3rd Order Cloud River Realm cultivator, the aftereffects of using the Fire Phoenix Spirit Rune were still somewhat unbearable. When he was still in the Cloudy River battlefield, he did not dare to pass out. Now that he had returned to his sect, his mind relaxed and he could no longer hold on. Shui Yuan's eyes were sharp and her hands were quick, supporting him in one go. Lu Yi's consciousness drifted in and out of consciousness. Boundless exhaustion constantly assaulted every part of his body. There were several times when he felt as if he was in a dream, and Lu Yi even heard the sect leader's gentle voice. After an unknown amount of time, he suddenly woke up from his coma. The faint sound of water ripples entered his ears. Lu Yi opened his eyes and was slightly dazed for a moment before slowly coming back to his senses. He was currently sitting in a bathtub filled with a green medicinal liquid. Hu Po was swimming in front of him with a satisfied expression. As if he sensed Lu Yi's gaze, Hu Po looked up and let out a whimper. Hearing the movement, Yi flashed in and said in surprise, "Lu Yi, you're awake?" Lu Yi nodded and checked his condition. Very good, his injuries were completely healed. Even the internal injuries that had accumulated during this period had disappeared without a trace. Obviously, it was due to Shui Yuan's help. His body was still weak, and there was not much spirit energy left in it. However, this was not a big problem. He just needed to rest for a day or two. How long have I been asleep? 2 days. Lu Yi nodded. Second senior sister was indeed worthy of being called second senior sister. Her attainments in medical skills were much better than Hua Xi's. Back then, when he first used the Fire Phoenix spirit mark in the Myriad Poison Forest, Hua Xi had treated him for many days before he slowly recovered. However, his second senior sister only needed 2 days to fully recover. He lowered his head and checked his battlefield mark. Name, Lu Yi. Identity, Blue Blood Sect Disciple. Cultivation, Third Order Cloud River Realm. Location, War Provinces Ao Mountain. Merit, 6,120 points. Battle points, 56 points. More than 100,000 merit points were suddenly reduced to a fraction. The price of requesting the Heaven's Fate Pillar was too high. Besides the time when he spent a huge sum of merit points to buy the Restoring Aperture Pill for fourth senior brother, this was the second time he had spent so much. However, the Restoring Aperture Pill could at least help his fourth senior brother repair his spirit aperture. The Heaven's Fate Pillar could only help him escape back to the 9 provinces. The Heaven's Fate Pillar could not be taken away. It would stay where it was. This time, if not for the fact that he had no other choice, Lu Yi would not have requested the Heaven's Fate Pillar. 100,000 merit points could buy a lot of things in the Heaven's Fate treasure house. While he was checking, Shui Yuan walked in and asked casually, "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine." "Good. Since you're back, stay in the sect and recuperate. Don't run around." "Yes." Shui Yuan had heard about Lu Ye's experience in the Cloud River battlefield from Yi. She was angry at the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators for bullying the weak, but she also felt sorry for her junior brother. However, she was only at the Spirit Sea realm, so she could not help Lu Yi. When Lu Yi was in the Spirit Stream battlefield, she could force her way in and help him, but she could not enter the Cloud River battlefield. He stepped forward and checked Lu Ye's condition. After confirming that he was really fine, he felt relieved. Second senior sister. I'm going to put on my clothes. I took off your clothes. What haven't I seen before? Shui Yuan rolled her eyes at him and walked out the door. Lu Yi was embarrassed. A moment later, a neatly dressed Lu Yi walked out of the room. The dazzling sunlight made him squint slightly. The chirping of birds and insects lingered in his ears, and the fragrance of flowers filled his nose. He stretched and felt that such a peaceful day was really comfortable. He called Yi and bowed to the sect master to listen to his teachings. When he walked out of the sect master's room, he smelled a mouth-watering fragrance. He followed the fragrance to the food hall. As expected, his second senior sister had already prepared a table full of delicious food. Compared to the food Hua Xi made, his second senior sister's cooking was undoubtedly 100 times better. However, although Hua Xi's food did not look good, its effects were not bad. As long as one's mind was strong enough, there was no psychological barrier to eating it. After stuffing himself with food, he bid farewell to Shui Yuan and flew straight to the Green Bamboo Peak. Green Bamboo Peak was Lu Ye's spirit mountain in the Blue Blood sect. He was also the peak master of Green Bamboo Peak. When he had reached the Cloud River realm, Shui Yuan had asked him to choose a spirit mountain, and Yi had chosen Green Bamboo Peak. This spirit mountain was not far from the Guardian Peak. He had asked many of his junior brothers and sisters to help build it. However, not long after reaching the Cloud River realm, Lu Yi entered the Cloud River battlefield, so he did not spend much time at Green Bamboo Peak. Now that he arrived, he could see the pavilions on the Spirit Mountain from afar. A sea of clouds rolled over the Spirit Mountain, and it was quite a celestial scene. After landing on the Spirit Mountain, he casually found a bedchamber and walked in, meditating in peace. Right now, the Blue Blood sect was not very lively. This was because the cultivation level of the Blue Blood sect disciples was generally low. Aside from him and Giant Armor, everyone else was at the Spirit Stream tier. Thus, they basically stayed at the Spirit Stream battlefield to cultivate, and very rarely returned to the sect. However, when the cultivation level of the disciples gradually increased in the future, the sect would definitely slowly become lively. Thinking about it, Hua-Si should be about to reach the Cloud River tier. He silently swallowed a spirit pill, meditated, and recovered. One day later, Lu Yi flew out of Green Bamboo Peak, full of energy. He first went to the Moon Lake to catch a few fish, and then came to the Guardian Peak. He found Shui Yuan and said, "Senior sister, I want to enter the Spirit Stream battlefield." Shui Yuan asked curiously, "Why are you entering the Spirit Stream battlefield?" Cloud River Realm cultivators had to pay some merit points to enter the Spirit Stream battlefield. The higher their cultivation, the more merit points they had to pay. Take Shui Yuan's previous actions as an example. She had spent thousands of merit points to enter the Spirit Stream battlefield. Revenge. When he left the Cloud River battlefield, Lu Yi had told the Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators that he would return today's favor 100-fold in the future. The Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators only thought that he was just saying it. After all, anyone who had suffered such a big loss and was almost killed would definitely not let it go. However, Lu Yi was obviously not just saying it. He had long since made up his mind to go to the Spirit Stream battlefield to cause trouble. He might not be able to defeat those Cloud River Realm 8th or 9th Order cultivators, but he could defeat those Spirit Stream Realm cultivators. If others bullied the weak to deal with him, then he would also bully the weak. With his identity as the Spirit Stream Overlord, who in the Spirit Stream realm could be his opponent? Without asking for anything else, he would get back the 100,000 merit points and the golden body token he had lost in the Spirit Stream battlefield, no matter what. Shui Yuan immediately understood what Lu Yi was planning. She frowned and tried to persuade him. "Little junior brother, high-level cultivators can't do whatever they want in the Spirit Stream battlefield. Even if you are stronger than them, if you kill someone, you will be punished by the heavens. This is a kind of protection the heavens give to low-level cultivators. I know, so I want to ask senior sister how you resisted the soul-extinguishing divine thunder." Lu Yao remembered the first time he saw Shui Yuan. She held an exaggerated war scythe in her hands as she slaughtered in all directions, protecting him from harm. The terrifying soul-extinguishing divine thunder lingered around her, but her expression didn't change at all. No matter how much time had passed, Lu Yi would always feel a trace of warmth in his heart whenever he recalled that smile. Chapter 536. The soul-extinguishing lightning was a punishment from heaven, and there was no way to avoid it. Therefore, Lu Yi wanted to know how his second senior sister had managed to block it. As long as he could solve this problem, he would be able to do whatever he wanted in the Spirit Stream battlefield. Shui Yuan shook her head. "I can't resist it, I can only endure it." After a pause, she continued, "My situation is special, you should know." She raised her hand to cover her chest. "Since I was born, there has been another me inside my body. It is the Wei Yang that you have met before. However, she rarely shows herself. She only shows herself when I lose control of my emotions." Lu Yi nodded. When he first came to the Blue Blood sect, he did not know about this. When he first saw Shui Yuan, he felt that his eldest senior sister and second senior sister looked alike, but in comparison, his second senior sister was a miniature version of his eldest senior sister. At that time, he thought that these two senior sisters were biological sisters. However, after spending a few years together, Lu Yi had deduced some things from some clues. Therefore, he was not surprised to hear Shui Yuan say it herself. She is very special, her endurance is extremely high, so even if she killed some people in the Spirit Stream battlefield, The soul-extinguishing lightning did not affect her too much. Of course, she has her own limits, and once she exceeds them, she will not be able to bear it, Shui Yuan continued. She has fought twice in the spirit stream battlefield before, and each time she returned, she would immediately fall into a deep sleep. The soul-extinguishing lightning targeted her, so it did not affect me. The 2 times Wei Yang had fought, once on Golden Light Peak, and once after Lu Yi was poisoned in Heaven Expanse sect. After entering the spirit stream battlefield, the more people you kill, the more powerful the soul-extinguishing lightning will be. Correspondingly, it will last longer. So, little junior brother, if you enter the spirit stream battlefield, it is best not to kill too many people. Although I have never experienced the soul-extinguishing lightning's power, it is not something to be trifled with. If something goes wrong, it may cause damage to your spirit. If that happens, things will become troublesome. Is there no other way? Lu Yi was unwilling to give up. Shui Yuan shook her head. This is heaven's punishment. I know. Seeing the look on his face, Shui Yuan could tell that Lu Yi was unwilling to give up, and that he would definitely have to go to the spirit stream battlefield. No matter what you do, she said, you have to protect yourself. Don't take any risk. After leaving Shui Yuan's place, Lu Yi felt somewhat depressed. If he couldn't kill too many people in the spirit stream battlefield, then he would definitely be restricted. Perhaps he could bring Little Gray with him? When the time came, he would break the array and let Little Gray kill them. He just did not know if Little Gray was at the encampment. The last time he had left the spirit stream battlefield, he had already set Little Gray free. It had been guarding an empty encampment for so many years only because of the last instructions of its dead senior brother. Xiao Hui could be considered to be loyal and righteous. No matter what, he would have to enter the spirit stream battlefield first. If he really couldn't do it, then he would have to kill as few people as possible. Lu Yi walked into the Heavenly Fate Hall and placed his hand on the Heavenly Fate pillar. After some investigation, he realized that he could not enter the Cloudy River battlefield. It seemed that he would have to wait for a month to pass. He could enter the Spirit Stream battlefield, but according to the feedback from the Heaven's Fate Pillar, with his current cultivation base, he would have to pay a deduction of 500 merit points. That was not much. With a thought, Lu Yi immediately disappeared and appeared in the Blue Blood sect's encampment. An inexplicable force suddenly descended, and Lu Yi felt that his spirit energy was greatly suppressed. The river of spirit energy that had been flowing endlessly in his body also stopped circulating. His third-order Cloud River realm cultivation rapidly fell as all his spirit energy stagnated in his spirit aperture. He understood that this was the suppression of the Heavenly Fate Pillar. Any cultivator with a cultivation base higher than the spirit stream stage would be suppressed to the point where their cultivation base would be reduced to the highest level of the spirit stream stage. He tried to circulate the spirit energy in his spirit aperture according to the Great Sun-Colored Glass Secret Arts route. Soon, the suppressed spirit energy began circulating and his cultivation base slowly recovered. First order, second order, third order, until he reached the 9th heaven realm. While he was recovering his strength, the nearby disciples also noticed him, and someone exclaimed, "Is that 5th senior brother?" They almost suspected that their eyes were playing tricks on them. Their 5th senior brother had already broken through to the Cloud River realm and left the Spirit Stream battlefield, so how could he suddenly appear here? They rubbed their eyes to make sure they weren't playing tricks on them. It really was their 5th senior brother. Hearing the shout, the others also looked in the direction of the voice. For a moment, the greetings were endless. Soon, the news of Lu Ye's appearance spread. After a short while, on the Spirit Peak where Xiao Hui was, Lu Yi looked at the empty eagle nest and felt a little helpless. Xiao Hui didn't seem to be in the encampment, which destroyed his original plan of bringing Xiao Hui to kill people. Someone flew over on a flying spirit artifact and landed beside Lu Yi, bowing respectfully. "Greetings, 5th senior brother." Lu Yi turned his head and found that this person looked familiar. He should be one of the first cultivators to join the Blue Blood sect, but he couldn't remember his name at the moment. You're Tao Jingyu, the current garrison envoy. The garrison envoy and deputy envoy of the Blue Blood sect's encampment had been replaced several times already. The main reason was that there was now an abundance of cultivation resources and the world energy in the encampment was rich, so the disciples' cultivation speed was very fast. They were located in the outermost circle of the battlefield and generally had to leave after reaching the 8th order, so whether it was the garrison envoy or deputy envoy, they couldn't stay for too long. In this regard, they were inferior to the inner and core circles. The garrison envoys and deputy envoys of the inner and core circles could stay longer. Lu Yi nodded and asked again, "What about Xiao Hui?" "I'm not sure. He is rarely in the encampment now. Sometimes he will come back, but generally, he won't stay for long," Tao Jingyu replied while observing Lu Ye's expression. He didn't know why Lu Yi suddenly appeared in the Spirit Stream battlefield, but after reflecting on his actions after taking over as the garrison envoy, he didn't seem to have made any mistakes, so he asked cautiously, "Is there something 5th senior brother needs to do here?" "And there is something," Lu Yi replied casually, then stood in place and pondered. Xiao Hui had disappeared without a trace, and it wasn't realistic to look for him right now. Without Xiao Hui, he wouldn't be able to kill too many people. Without killing people, the sects of the Myriad Demon Ridge wouldn't be too afraid of him. How was he going to get back the 100,000 merit points and golden body tokens he had lost? Or was he just going to break through their arrays to vent his anger? With his current attainments in the Tao of array formations, the great arrays of the Myriad Demon Ridge sects wouldn't be able to stop him. If he just wanted to break through their arrays to vent his anger, there wouldn't be enough benefits, so there wasn't much point in doing so. This left Lu Yi in a dilemma. Sure enough, some things wouldn't be as smooth as he thought. There would always be many twists and turns. Since Lu Yi didn't speak, Tao Jingyu could only stand to the side, feeling the pressure. After a long time, Lu Yi said, "Forget it. Come with me and we'll get whatever we can." No matter what, once he took action this time, he would definitely alarm all the sects of the Myriad Demon Ridge. Who wouldn't be afraid of the return of the exterminating sect Leaf? Under the premise that he couldn't kill too many people, Lu Yi estimated that he would only be able to take down 1 or 2 sects at most. Bringing along his own guardian would be a good opportunity to plunder the blessings of other sects' Heaven's Fate pillars. Summoning his own flight-type spirit artifact, Lu Yi took Tao Jingyu and soared into the sky. Tao Jingyu was confused. He had no idea what Lu Yi was going to do, but he didn't ask much and could only follow silently. The journey forward was calm and peaceful. From the outermost ring of the battlefield to the core, it was a long journey. If Lu Yi could exert the strength of a 3rd-order Cloud River Realm cultivator, it wouldn't take him 2 or 3 days, but right now, he could only exert the strength of Tianjiu, so the journey would take twice as long. Fortunately, his current flight-type spirit artifact was a mid-rank spirit artifact, which was faster than a low-rank spirit artifact. The only drawback was that it consumed a lot of spirit chi. There was little rest along the way, and Tao Jingyu had a profound understanding of his 5th senior brother's terrifying heritage. Generally speaking, it would be difficult for a cultivator to replenish their spirit chi after flying for a long time, but his 5th senior brother was always on the move except for an hour of rest every day. In just 4 days, the two arrived at the core. Lu Yi took out the map of the Spirit Stream battlefield and checked it, making a choice between New Moon Sect and Cloud Sun Sect. New Moon Sect was Tanxing's sect. Lu Yi had confirmed this when he chatted with Li Baxian before, while Cloud Sun Sect was Wei Kei's sect. Both sects were in the core, so Lu Yi wasn't unfamiliar with them. After all, he had received safety money from them before, so even if he didn't have any dealings with them, he had at least heard of them. Since he could only take 1 or 2 sects, he naturally had to choose carefully. In the end, he decided to take action against New Moon Sect. The reason why he was imprisoned in the hunting ground, forced to use the golden body token, and spent 100,000 merit points to invite the Heaven's Fate Pillar, was because Tan Xing used the tracking disc. It could be said that the source of his pursuit was Tan Xing. Every injustice had its perpetrator, and every debt had its debtor, so he naturally had to make up for his losses with New Moon Sect. After flying for another half a day, they finally arrived 10 kilometers away from New Moon Sect Station. Lu Yi pressed down on the flight-type spirit artifact, grabbed Hu Po, and threw it to Tao Zhengyu. Wait here. Tao Zhengyu took Hu Po, nodded, and stood in place obediently. Lu Yi rushed straight to New Moon Sect Station. He would definitely have to fight with New Moon Sect's cultivators this time, so it would be inconvenient to bring Tao Zhengyu, a 7th-order cultivator. Leaving him here, with Hu Po and Yi guarding him, he wouldn't have to worry about his safety. 10 kilometers was covered in the blink of an eye. In New Moon Sect Station, the light curtain of the protective array was like an inverted bowl. The light curtain wasn't thick, and it could be seen that the protective array's power hadn't been activated too much. Under normal circumstances, no one would always think of attacking someone else's station. Except for Blue Blood Sect's Lu Yi. When he was at the Spirit Stream battlefield, he stirred up chaos. Now that he had broken through to the Cloud River realm, the people of Myriad Demon Ridge could finally live a comfortable life. However, no one expected that in less than 3 months, the God of Plague would actually come back. Chapter 537. Outside New Moon Sect Station, Lu Yi landed and activated his Insight Spirit inscriptions to observe the nodes of the Spirit Array. Immediately, a cultivator in charge of guarding the place noticed his presence and flew over. He looked at him from across the great formation and shouted in a low voice, "Who are you?" A sneaky figure had suddenly appeared outside their spirit array, seemingly harboring evil intentions, so he naturally wouldn't be polite. Lu Yi glanced at him indifferently. "Who do you think I look like?" This question stunned the cultivator, but when he took a closer look, he suddenly felt that this person looked familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. But he was sure that he had never seen this person before, so he couldn't remember where this inexplicable sense of familiarity came from. Just as he was about to ask again, Lu Yi had already found the location of the nodes and arrived there in a flash, throwing out array flags one after another. If he could use his 3rd-order Cloud River realm cultivation, Lu Yi estimated that he could break through this spirit array with brute force. After all, the power of this spirit array had not been fully activated and was only operating at its most basic level. But under the premise that he could only use Tianjio's strength, brute force was unrealistic, so it was better to sneak in. "What are you doing?" Seeing Lu Yi's actions, the cultivator asked again. Lu Yi didn't speak, but his hands didn't stop moving. The cultivator's expression changed, and he carefully looked at Lu Yi again, finally remembering why he felt that this person's face was familiar. He had never seen Lu Yi in person, but he had seen a portrait of him. However, Lu Yi had left the Spirit Stream battlefield for nearly 3 months, so he didn't expect that he would appear here again, much less outside his own station. "You're the sect exterminating leaf," the cultivator exclaimed as he stumbled back, as if Lu Yi was some kind of scourge that he couldn't avoid. Then, he turned around, summoned his spirit artifact, and flew into the station, shouting as he flew, "The sect exterminating leaf is here! The sect exterminating leaf is here!" Disaster was imminent, and the sect exterminating leaf was here. Their station was probably going to be destroyed. His shouts alarmed many New Moon Sect cultivators, and they were all shocked. An angry roar sounded. "Who's talking nonsense?" As the voice sounded, a burly man flew over on his artifact. "Senior Brother Lei Feng, the sect exterminating leaf is here." When the cultivator who had just escaped saw him, he quickly reported. Lei Feng was the guardian of the New Moon Sect's outpost, and was currently ranked 58th on the Spirit Stream list. It could be said that he was the most powerful cultivator in the New Moon Sect's outpost. Who's here? Frowning, he wondered if he had heard wrongly. The sect exterminating leaf. Sex Luia. Bullshit. He scolded. That bastard advanced to Cloud River 3 months ago. He should be in the Cloud River battlefield right now. Why would he come here? Senior brother, eyes, sex cultivator leaf ye. Sect exterminating leaf sect. Layden's brows furrowed. Perhaps someone looks a lot like ye the destroyer? Ye sect, and sect. But he's breaking the formation. Formation Yi Lei Feng was shocked. At this moment, the jade pendant that controlled the defensive array moved. Before he could take it out to check, he saw a streak of light rush over from the distance, arriving nearby in the blink of an eye. Lei Feng looked over and couldn't help but gasp. It really was the sect exterminating leaf. Speaking of which, he had interacted with Luia before. Back when New Moon Sect had trapped Luia on the outskirts of the 10,000 Poisons Forest, they had also participated. At that time, Lei Feng had led a few disciples. Thus, he had seen Luia before. Of course, Luia definitely had no impression of him, because there were too many cultivators from the 10,000 Demons Ridge who had made things difficult for him. Who could remember clearly? Why had the sect exterminating leaf returned to the Spirit Stream battlefield, and why had he come to their station? Lei Feng's mind was filled with questions. Although his expression was serious, he didn't panic. If Luia's cultivation was still at the 9 Heavens tier, he would be nervous. However, Luia had entered the Spirit Stream battlefield with a Cloud River tier cultivation, so there was no need for him to be nervous. Lei Feng definitely couldn't defeat him. Luia's many terrifying achievements in the Spirit Stream battlefield were in front of him, so Lei Feng knew his own limits. But so what? Did Luia dare to kill? The punishment of Heaven's Secret was no joke. If high-level cultivators could really kill as they pleased in the Spirit Stream battlefield, then the stations of the various large sects would have been flattened long ago. Now, the question was, what was this guy doing here? Lei Feng was certain that Luia didn't come with good intentions. After all, they weren't on the same side. To the various large sects of the 10,000 Demons Ridge, Luia carried a blood feud. 2 years ago, who knew how many cultivators from the 10,000 Demons Ridge had died at his hands? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he killed people like flies. With this thought, Lei Feng took a few steps forward and looked at Luia with a serious expression. Fellow cultivator Lu, why did you come to New Moon Sect Station instead of making a fortune in the Cloud River battlefield? Tan Xing, is he from New Moon Sect? Luia asked indifferently, his hand on the hilt of his saber. Lei Feng frowned when he heard this. He is my elder brother. What advice does fellow cultivator Lu have for me? You're Tan Xing's younger brother. Luia raised his eyebrows. This was an unexpected gain. Yes. Very good. Luia nodded. Tan Xing took good care of me on the Cloud River battlefield. Today, I've come to repay his kindness. When the last word fell, Luia had already left behind an afterimage, pouncing straight at the woman. Although Lei Feng had been on guard, he clearly hadn't expected Luia to be so decisive. This was completely different from what he had imagined. In his mind, Luia, a Cloud River tier cultivator, wouldn't dare to kill indiscriminately in the Spirit Stream battlefield. Otherwise, the soul-extinguishing divine lightning wouldn't be easy to endure. Who would have thought that Luia would really attack? Surrounded by a great sense of danger, Layden hastily summoned a spirit artifact shield and imbued it with his own spirit energy to block in front of him. In the next instant there was a loud boom, and Lei Feng's entire body was smashed to the ground. The overwhelming power caused his eyes to widen. What shocked him even more was that his spirit tool shield had dimmed under this attack, and its spirituality had been greatly damaged. Lei Feng's cultivation level was Heaven 9, and he was ranked in the 50s on the Spirit Stream battlefield. Even in the spirit stream battlefield, he could be considered a powerful cultivator. Lu Ye could only display the cultivation level of Heaven 9, yet he had almost broken through Lei Feng's defenses with a single attack. How terrifying was that! Lei Feng had never truly fought with Lu Ye before. Thus, although he knew that Lu Ye was very powerful, he didn't know exactly how powerful he was. Until now. Senior Brother Tan. The surrounding cultivators of the New Moon sect all cried out in alarm when they saw Lei Feng fall. At the same time, Lei Feng felt another fierce attack coming from his spirit tool shield. With a crashing sound, the 9th limit low-grade defensive spiritual tool was completely shattered, revealing Leiden's panic-stricken face. Lu Ye followed closely behind him, and his mountain coiling saber slashed horizontally. Lei Feng had no more spirit tools to use now, so he could only forcefully circulate his spiritual power and blood qi to form a protective barrier around his body. The mountain coiling saber fell, and blood splattered everywhere. Lei Feng fell heavily to the ground, a massive gash on his abdomen. One could almost see his internal organs. Lei Feng's hair stood on end, and he felt as if death had been so close to him. If not for the fact that he was a body cultivator with thick skin and thick flesh, he would definitely have been cut in half by that slash. Lu Ye was slightly surprised to see that Lei Feng was still alive. He sighed with emotion. The physical body of a body cultivator was indeed much stronger than that of cultivators of the same level. Just as he was about to rush over and give Lei Feng another slash, the sound of air being torn apart rang out. How could the cultivators of the New Moon sect hold back when their guardian was attacked? Who cared if he was Lu Ye or Lu Ye? Let's fight first and talk later. There were so many of them, so there was no reason for them to be afraid of one person. In an instant, spells and spirit tools shot out, attacking Lu Ye from all directions. Left with no choice, Lu Ye could only withdraw his killing intent and dodge the attack. At the same time, the weapon box at his waist buzzed, and 9 spirit tools flew out. The scene was extremely chaotic. Even more cultivators of the New Moon sect were alarmed and rushed over. Beside Lei Feng, a medical cultivator ran over to check on his injuries and treat him. Lei Feng himself shouted angrily, "Lu Ye, you're a Cloud River tier cultivator. Instead of cultivating in the Cloud River battlefield, you came to the Spirit Stream battlefield to show off your strength. Do you really think that the New Moon sect is afraid of you? I know, my brother must have taught you a lesson in the Cloud River battlefield. You're no match for him, so you came here to bully the weak. You're really shameless." When Lu Ye suddenly asked about Tan Xing, he vaguely guessed in his heart. Although he did not dare to say for sure, he was definitely close to the truth. Otherwise, there was no reason for sect-destroying Yi to come to the New Moon sect's base. Following his angry shout, a scream suddenly rang out. The cultivators of the New Moon sect had different levels of cultivation. Although Lu Ye fought against many alone, he had experienced many similar situations since he started cultivating. He had a lot of experience on how to deal with such situations. His figure moved, defended, and attacked with spirit tools. Finally, a cultivator of the New Moon sect was caught off guard and was killed by his spirit tool. Blood and corpses fell from the sky. Lei Feng was furious. "You dare to kill?" He never thought that Lu Ye would really dare to kill someone here. Was he not afraid of being punished by the heavens? After killing one of them, Lu Ye's body suddenly glowed with purple light. If one looked closely, they would see that it was not purple light at all. Instead, it was purple lightning swimming around his body. The soul-destroying divine lightning hit him, and Lu Ye's eyelids twitched. There was no other reason. It was too painful. Since he started cultivating, he had suffered countless injuries, big and small. There were even a few times when he was seriously injured to the point of fainting. However, there had never been an injury that he felt was unbearable. The punishment of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder gave people an unbearable feeling. This kind of pain did not just come from the physical body, but also from the soul. It was as if there were countless ants madly gnawing at his body, making him suffer torturous torture. To be continued. Chapter 538. As a Cloud River tier cultivator, coming to the Spirit Stream battlefield to bully the weak was indeed not very good. If Tan Xing had really made Lu Yi suffer such a great loss by himself, he would not have acted like this. His skills were inferior, so there was nothing to say. He could only work hard to cultivate, increase his strength, and then think of a way to get revenge. However, Tan Xing had used the second effect of the tracking plate, making it impossible for him to hide in the hunting ground. In the end, he had been surrounded by the elites of the Myriad Demons Ridge, unable to escape. He had used the extremely precious Golden Body Medallion and spent 100,000 merit points, suffering heavy losses. The origin of the hunting ground incident was Tan Xing, so the losses could only be recovered from the New Moon sect. At the same time, it was also a kind of declaration. If they could not kill him, then they would have to suffer his revenge. In the New Moon sect's encampment, after killing one person, purple lightning lingered around Lu Ye's body. The punishment of the heavens immediately descended. The pain brought by the soul-extinguishing divine lightning was simply unbearable. Before coming here, he had tried to overestimate the power of the soul-extinguishing divine lightning, but in the end, he found that he had still underestimated it. He had only killed one person, and if he killed more, the punishment would be even more severe. Lu Yi estimated that with his current endurance, he would reach his limit after killing 5 or 6 people at most. At that time, even if he did not die, he would lose the ability to move. Although there were not many cultivators in the New Moon sect's encampment, there were at least 100 or 200 people. With only a few people, it would be difficult to accomplish anything. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, a strange movement suddenly came from his source aperture, and with that movement, the pain he was suffering from both his body and mind was greatly alleviated. Lu Ye's heart trembled, and he moved his body to dodge one attack after another. At the same time, he divided a part of his attention to investigate his source spiritual cavity. As he looked, he saw that the talent tree in his source spiritual cavity was blooming with flames, as if the entire tree was burning. As the flames on the talent tree rose and tumbled, a large amount of gray mist was evaporated. The purple lightning lingering around his body was disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The talent tree could burn away the soul-extinguishing divine lightning. This discovery surprised Lu Yi greatly, but after thinking about it carefully, it made sense. For a long time, the talent tree had been able to burn away the harmful energies that invaded the body. Many poisons were the same. Therefore, as long as the talent tree had enough fuel, Lu Yi would be immune to all poisons. Although the soul-extinguishing divine thunder was a punishment from the heavens that couldn't be avoided, it was the same as poison. To Lu Yi, both were harmful energies that invaded the body. Since that was the case, the talent tree could naturally burn it. However, in comparison, the movement of burning the soul-extinguishing divine lightning was much greater than the movement of burning the poison. It seemed that the consumption of fuel was also greater. In just a short moment, Lu Yi felt his entire body lighten, and the purple lightning that wrapped around his body disappeared. Originally, he had some scruples when he attacked because he did not dare to kill too many people. He only planned to kill a few key figures to scare off the other cultivators of New Moon sect. Now that he discovered that the talent tree could even burn the soul-extinguishing divine lightning, he no longer had any misgivings. Light flashed on the 9 Imperial equipment. Under the support of the spirit inscriptions, whether it was speed or power, it was much stronger than before. Screams were heard again, and several figures fell from the sky with blood spurting out. The purple lightning that was about to disappear once again clung to Lu Ye's body and slithered around like a snake. Tanli, who was seriously injured, was still shouting angrily, "Lu Ye, you're courting death!" His junior brother's death pained him, but if Lu Ye continued to be so stubborn, he would not have a good ending. If he could kill Lu Ye here today, it would be worth it no matter how big the loss was. The premise was that Lu Ye could not escape. Thinking of this, Tan Li shouted, "Don't let him escape. He won't be able to last long." Originally, Lu Yi had killed several people under the siege of so many cultivators, which had already made the cultivators of New Moon sect wary. They only had one life, who would not cherish it. However, seeing the purple lightning on Lu Ye's body getting denser and denser, and with Tan Li's orders, the cultivators of New Moon sect immediately mustered up their courage and continued to fight with Lu Yi. The flowing light of Imperial equipment crisscrossed, and the saber light slashed. Lu Ye's figure was like a graceful butterfly, fluttering in the crowd. Everywhere he passed, there would be a rain of blood. The figures of New Moon sect cultivators fell down like dumplings. In such a fierce battle, it was difficult for Lu Yi to block all the attacks. However, he had the defensive spirit rune, so he was able to protect his vital points. The other attacks that landed on him would at most cause him some light injuries. At the same level of cultivation, Lu Ye's physique was comparable to a body cultivator who specialized in the cultivation of the physical body. However, if the cultivators of New Moon sect were hit by Lu Ye's saber, it would not be a matter of injury, but a matter of life and death. Cultivators were constantly falling in battle. Lu Ye's entire body seemed to have turned into a purple lightning bolt, shuttling through the battlefield. Someone could not stand the pressure and could not help but shout, "Senior Brother Tan, we're no match for him." If someone had told them before today that there was a person in this world who could single-handedly fight all the cultivators in their encampment, they would not have believed it. However, at this moment, such an unbelievable thing was happening right under their noses. Moreover, that person was the famous sect exterminating Yi, and he was still killing people under the punishment of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. Tan Li's eyes were bloodshot. Seeing his own cultivators die one after another, his heart ached so much that he could not breathe. However, they had already paid such a huge price. If they gave up now, wouldn't those who died just now have died in vain? The purple lightning on Lu Ye's body was so dense that it could not be dispersed. He must be enduring unimaginable torture and pain. He can't hold on. We must hold him back. Tan Li roared. Lu Ye's endurance was beyond imagination. Tan Li originally thought that he could only kill a few people at most, but by now nearly 30 people had died in Lu Ye's hand. There were less than 200 cultivators in New Moon sect's encampment. Just now, 10 to 20% of them had died. How heavy was the loss? If he did not hold Lu Ye back, he would not be able to answer to his sect. Since their sect's guardian had already spoken, no matter how frightened the cultivators of New Moon sect were, they could only brace themselves and continue to attack Lu Ye. However, Lu Ye did not seem to be bothered by the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. Instead, he became more and more courageous. Wherever the long saber in his hand pointed, a cultivator would be killed. Beside Tan Li, the medical cultivator who was treating his injuries suddenly said, "Senior apprentice brother, I heard that on the Golden Light Summit, a true lake stage cultivator from the Jade Blood sect forced her way into the Spirit Stream battlefield. Dozens of cultivators died in her hands." Tan Li suddenly turned his head, his eyes bloodshot. "What are you trying to say?" The medical cultivator said, "I don't know how strong the soul-extinguishing divine thunder is, but it is said that even a spiritual C-stage cultivator cannot withstand the punishment of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. Logically speaking, Lu Ye should be unable to move. However, although the soul-extinguishing divine thunder on his body is increasing, it does not seem to affect him much. Senior apprentice brother, does the Jade Blood sect have some special method to avoid the effects of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder?" "Impossible," Tan Li denied. "This is the punishment of heaven's secrets. There is no way to avoid it." "I mean, what if?" Tan Li's expression became dazed. Yes, what if? It had been so long since Lu Ye killed his first person, and so many people had died at his hands. If he was really punished by the soul-extinguishing divine thunder, even if he did not die on the spot, he should be in so much pain that he would not be able to move. However, this guy seemed to be getting fiercer and fiercer as he fought. His expression was extremely calm, without the slightest hint of pain. Did the Jade Blood sect really have a way to avoid the punishment of Heaven's secrets? If that was the case, then it was too inconceivable. Heaven's secrets had always been fair and just, so why was it so biased towards the Jade Blood sect? Senior apprentice brother, you can't use the lives of your fellow apprentices to test Louis's condition, the medical cultivator said earnestly. Tanley suddenly came back to his senses. Yes, those were his fellow apprentices. The reason why he let his own cultivators continue to besiege Louis was not that he thought they could beat him in terms of strength, but because he felt that Louis could not withstand the torture of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. However, if Louis could really avoid the punishment of Heaven's secrets, then no matter how many people died, it would be in vain. Thinking of this, Tanley no longer hesitated. He suddenly stood up and shouted, "Return to the 9 regions." The moment he finished speaking, he rushed straight towards Louis. Following Tanley's order, the cultivators of the New Moon sect, who had already sensed that something was wrong, rushed towards the Heaven's Secrets Hall. Louis was about to chase after him, but Tanley's burly figure had already rushed over, shouting, "Don't kill my fellow apprentices!" Spiritual power and chi and blood surged wildly, causing Tanley's whole body to reveal an abnormal dark red color. His whole person was like a mad beast, ferocious and insufferably arrogant. Louis stopped, raised his Pan-Shan saber horizontally, and slashed 3 times in a row. 3 crescent-shaped saber lights slashed towards Tanley, who crossed his arms in front of him to block. With 3 muffled thuds, deep wounds appeared on Tanley's arms, so deep that his bones could be seen. His forward momentum was also stopped. When he looked up, he saw a figure wrapped in purple instantly appear in front of him. A bright saber light flashed in front of his eyes, and Tanley's body froze in place. Louis had already brushed past him, chasing after the cultivators of the New Moon sect who were rushing towards the Heaven's Secrets Hall. Behind him, Tanley's eyes were gloomy. His body fell from the sky, and before he hit the ground, his head had already been separated from his body. He was also a 9th Heaven cultivator, but under such heavy injuries, he couldn't even take a single hit from Louis. After a while, the battle ended. In the Heaven's Secrets Hall, Louis shook off the bloodstains on his Pan-Shan saber and returned it to its sheath. Many people of the New Moon sect had run away, but there was nothing he could do about it. If they didn't want to fight to the death with him, he wouldn't be able to keep everyone here by himself. However, it was still not bad. He turned around and walked out of the Heaven's Secrets Hall, arriving in front of Tanley's headless corpse. He searched his chest for a while, then took out the Great Formation jade pendant. After refining it a little, he closed the defensive formation of the encampment. Only then did he send a message to Yi, asking her to bring Tao Jingyu over. Chapter 539. When Tao Jingyu followed Yi into New Moon sect's encampment, he saw a scene that he would never forget for the rest of his life. Tragic corpses were scattered all over the ground, and the ground was covered in blood. Following the blood and corpses, they arrived in front of New Moon sect's Divine Secret Hall. A figure sat casually on the steps of Divine Secret Hall. His body was covered in blood, and a long saber was placed beside him. On the surface of the figure, purple lightning was slithering around like a snake. Just looking at the purple lightning gave Tao Jingyu an extremely uncomfortable feeling. It was hard to imagine what kind of torture one would suffer if they were surrounded by such purple lightning. Behind this figure, Divine Secret Hall was filled with the smell of blood. There were at least 10 or 20 corpses piled up inside. This was the core region, and every cultivator here was at least a 9th order cultivator. However, these cultivators, who were high and mighty in Tao Jingyu's eyes, were all lying in pools of blood, their corpse temperature gradually cooling. Along the way he saw about 50 corpses. Looking at the figure sitting on the steps, Tao Jingyu suddenly felt like he was looking up at a tall mountain. At this moment, he clearly felt that this mountain in front of him was one that he would never be able to surpass in his life. This was his fifth senior brother. A few months ago, he was a master who suppressed the entire Myriad Demon Ridge with his own strength. On the day he broke through to the Cloud River realm, Myriad Demon Ridge celebrated with gongs and drums. However, who would have thought that in less than 3 months, he would kill his way into the Spirit Stream battlefield and challenge an entire sect by himself. He stepped forward and bowed respectfully. Fifth senior brother. Go in. Yes. Tao Jingyu knew the purpose of Lu Yi bringing him here. He immediately stepped into Divine Secret Hall and began to plunder the various blessings on New Moon Sect's Divine Secret Pillar with his identity as a guardian. This was the first time he had done such a thing after taking over as the guardian of Blue Blood Sect's encampment. However, it was not troublesome. After a little exploration, he knew how to do it. Yi placed the storage bags she collected along the way in front of Lu Yi and asked worriedly, Lu Yi, are you okay? The soul-extinguishing divine thunder targeted the soul, so it was extremely effective against a spirit body like Yi. Therefore, just looking at the purple lightning made Yi feel dizzy. I'm fine. Lu Yi casually replied. The talent tree had been incinerating the soul-extinguishing divine lightning that had invaded his body, so he felt quite good. Although it was painful, it was still within the range of what he could endure. On the other hand, not only did his merit points not increase, they had decreased by nearly 2,000. From the looks of it, even if Tianji had suppressed his cultivation to the Heaven 9 boundary, the merit points would still be calculated based on his third-order Cloud River realm cultivation. Killing enemies with a cultivation base several levels higher than that of a Spirit Stream stage cultivator naturally wouldn't earn any merit point. Instead, merit points would be deducted. It was a bit of a loss. Originally, Lu Yi came to New Moon Sect to make up for his losses, but now, not only did he not gain anything, he even lost more. Fortunately, he still had a lot of storage bags. Lu Yi popped a few spirit pills into his mouth, healing himself while opening the restrictions on the storage bags. A Spirit Stream Realm cultivator's storage pouch did not have many good things, even for a Heavenly 9 realm cultivator like Tanli. One storage pouch after another was opened. About half an hour later, all the storage bags were opened. Sure enough, there wasn't anything that could make one's eyes light up. Tao Jingyu had already swept through all the blessings in New Moon Sect's encampment. At this moment, he looked quite excited. He came to Lu Yi and asked, Fifth senior brother, where should we go next? Lu Yi put some of the spirit pills and spirit stones in a storage bag and threw it to him. Wait here. After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked into Tianji Hall. Arriving in front of Tianji Pillar, he pressed his hand on it and connected his mind to the Tianji treasury, selling the rest of the spoils. His merit points increased to more than 7,000. Then, without hesitation, he bought all the merit points for the Earth Core Fire and devoured it one by one. There was no other reason. The talent tree seemed to have run out of fuel and needed to be replenished quickly. Otherwise, the soul-extinguishing divine lightning that had invaded his body would not be able to be incinerated, and it would be inconvenient for his next move. Comparatively speaking, the consumption of the talent tree to burn the soul-extinguishing thunder was much greater than the consumption of the poison. He didn't know how much fuel the talent tree had accumulated. Every time he devoured the Earth Core Fire, part of the energy was used to activate the spirit patterns on the talent tree, and the other part was stored as backup fuel. Since he started cultivating, the talent tree had only run out of fuel once, and that was during the Battle of Golden Light Summit. However, at that time, his cultivation was not high, and he didn't have much money. The amount of energy he could devour with the talent tree was not much, so it was natural that the fuel would run out. Ever since he started buying the Earth Core Fire from the Tianji treasury, the talent tree had never run out of fuel. This was the second time the talent tree ran out of fuel. As the Earth Core Fire devoured one after another, the talent tree burned a large amount of gray fog. However, the purple lightning surrounding him did not decrease at all. This time, he had killed more than 50 people. The amount of soul-extinguishing thunder accumulated was too large, and it would probably consume a lot of the Earth Core Fire. What surprised Lu Yi was that the talent tree's leaves did not react when he devoured the Earth Core Fire this time. It seemed that the talent tree had also sensed that his situation was not good, and had reacted accordingly. Now that he was being corroded by the soul-extinguishing thunder, all the Earth Core Fire he had devoured had turned into fuel, and did not provide energy to activate new spirit patterns on the talent tree. Soon, the Earth Core Fire that he had exchanged for more than 7,000 merit points was completely devoured, and large amounts of gray fog continued to rise from the talent tree. After less than an hour, the talent tree stopped moving, and the fuel was used up again. However, the soul-extinguishing thunder on Lu Ye's body was still purple, and showed no signs of weakening. What a loss! The corner of Lu Ye's eye twitched. He had originally wanted to come to New Moon sect to make up for his losses, but in the end, he had lost merit points by killing people, and burning the soul-extinguishing thunder also required merit points. In this way, not only did he not make up for his losses, but his losses became more and more severe. However, if he counted the blessings that Tao Zhengyu had plundered, he would definitely have profited. However, Lu Yi was now at the Cloud River tier, and the matters in the encampment had nothing to do with him. No matter how many blessings Tao Zhengyu plundered, the benefits would belong to the sect, and he would not be able to get a share. Lu Yi rummaged through his storage space again. After entering the Cloud River battlefield, he had obtained many spoils of war, but he had not dealt with them. He had originally planned to deal with them when he had the opportunity to go to the Tianji Business Alliance, but there was no need to think about this now. It was more important to deal with his own troubles first. Once again, he connected his mind to the Tianji treasure house, and sold the many spoils of war that he had no use for. He kept the origin spirit pills and spirit stones, which he could use for his own cultivation. He barely managed to gather more than 10,000 merit points, and continued to buy Earth Core Fire to replenish the fuel for the talent tree. While he was busy, a piece of news in the 9 prefectures spread rapidly among the great sects of the Wanmo Ridge, as if it had spread wings. After 3 months, the sect Extinguishing Yi had reappeared at the Spirit Stream battlefield, and this time, he had directly come to New Moon sect's encampment. With his own strength, he had slaughtered his way through the encampment of New Moon sect. The encampment of New Moon sect was lost, and more than 50 disciples were killed or injured. Even the guardian of New Moon sect, Tanli, was killed. When the news spread, all the great sects of the Wanmo Ridge were shaken. Countless people stomped their feet and cursed angrily. Lu Yi was inhumane. As a Cloud River tier cultivator, he actually did not cultivate in the Cloud River battlefield, and instead came to the Spirit Stream battlefield to show off. Especially the entire New Moon sect, they were all suppressing a bellyful of anger. The higher-ups of the True Lake and Spirit Sea tier wanted nothing more than to charge into the Spirit Stream battlefield and avenge their dead disciples. However, considering Lu Yi's unparalleled battle prowess in the spirit level, those True Lake and Spirit Sea tier cultivators did not dare to really enter. It would be fine if they won, but if they lost, then they would become a laughingstock. But no matter what, the New Moon sect had suffered heavy losses this time. Their encampment had been destroyed, which meant that the blessings that they had accumulated over the years would definitely be plundered. Moreover, so many of their disciples had died, and such losses could not be compensated by recruiting new disciples. There had to be an explanation. Thinking back, when Lu Yi had gone to the great sects of the Wanmo Ridge to extort money for safety, the New Moon sect had obediently cooperated. Since they had received the money several months ago, What right did they have to cause trouble again? This was going back on their word. This was going back on their word. The upper echelons of the New Moon sect immediately gathered the survivors and inquired about the ins and outs of the matter. Soon, they obtained some useful information. Lu Ye had mentioned Tan Xing before, and said that Tan Xing had taken good care of him on the Cloud River battlefield, so he had specially come to return the favor. Of course, this was sarcasm. They were in different camps. If Tan Xing had really seen Lu Ye and found out his identity, he would have definitely killed him. Why would he have taken care of him? However, according to this information, the New Moon sect quickly realized that the root of the matter might be Tan Xing. They immediately ordered people to enter the Cloud River battlefield to gather information. Soon there was news. Nearly a month ago, a hunting ground had appeared on the Cloud River battlefield, and Tan Xing and Lu Ye were both there. In the end, Tan Xing used a tracking disc to fight for the top spot in the hunt. He joined forces with many experts of the Wan Mo Ridge to surround Lu Ye and almost killed him. In the end, Lu Ye was forced to use a golden body token, and after the hunting ground closed, he invited a divine pillar. Only then did he escape. An extremely precious golden body medallion and a pillar of heavenly secrets worth 100,000 contribution points. The entire New Moon sect finally understood why Lu Ye had come to their base to cause trouble. He was obviously taking revenge. For a moment, the New Moon sect didn't know what to say. They could only blame Tan Xing for not being thorough enough and not killing him, leaving behind a big problem. If the New Moon sect could gather information from the Cloud River battlefield, the other sects of the Wan Mo Ridge would naturally be able to as well. Therefore, even if the New Moon sect didn't announce it to the public, the news of the hunting ground quickly spread. Countless cultivators of the Wan Mo Ridge exclaimed. Lu Ye was really lucky to be able to obtain something like the golden body token. According to the information they had gathered, Lu Ye would have died 100 times over if he didn't have the golden body token. Based on how much time had passed, it seemed that Lu Ye had entered the Spirit Stream battlefield almost immediately after leaving the Cloud River battlefield. He really was a petty person who couldn't wait for revenge. Chapter 540. Compared to the fury of the New Moon sect, the other sects of the Wanmo Ridge were more concerned about Lu Ye's current situation. As a cultivator at the Cloud River tier, forcefully entering the Spirit Stream battlefield and slaughtering everyone sounded very impressive and domineering. However, the punishment from the heavens was no laughing matter. Especially since Lu Ye had killed more than 50 people this time. It was said that in the end, the purple lightning had almost solidified on his body, and his entire body was covered in snakes of lightning. The power of the soul-destroying divine lightning was terrifying. Would Lu Ye die just like that? If so, then the New Moon sect had contributed greatly, and the loss was acceptable. This scourge had caused chaos in the Spirit Stream battlefield when he was at the Spirit Stream realm, and the Myriad Demon Ridge had been unable to do anything to him. When he had entered the Cloud River battlefield, he had been surrounded by so many experts with his weak cultivation, but he had still been able to escape. If such a talent was allowed to grow, it would be a disaster for the Wanmo Ridge. But if he died to the soul-destroying divine lightning, that would be good news. Suddenly, countless messages were sent to the New Moon sect, asking them to send people to the Spirit Stream battlefield to check the situation and confirm whether Lu Ye was alive or not. The New Moon sect naturally rejected such a ridiculous request. They were all just a bunch of onlookers. They were not the ones who had their base destroyed, nor were they the ones who had their disciples killed. Now, the one who had lost was the New Moon sect. If Lu Ye was still alive and they sent people to the battlefield now, wouldn't they be sending sheep to the tiger's den? Moreover, Tan Xing was not the only one who had made things difficult for Lu Ye in the hunting ground. However, Tan Xing was the cause of the matter. The base was destroyed and the disciples were killed. The New Moon sect had to admit it. But with Lu Ye's crazy momentum, the New Moon sect would not be the only one he wanted to take revenge on. When the time came, all the sects behind the powerful cultivators who had participated in the attack would not be able to escape. When this news spread, many sects of the Wanmo Ridge panicked. They hurriedly sent people to the Cloud River battlefield to find out who had attacked Luia that day, and if there were any cultivators from their sects. But the Cloud River battlefield was not as convenient as the Spirit Stream battlefield, so many things could not be found clearly. Who knew how long it would take for the news to be confirmed? Moreover, Luia was bound by the soul-destroying divine lightning. Even if he did not die, he should not have the energy to find trouble with other sections. Now that he thought about it, things might not be as bad as what the New Moon sect had made them out to be. However, they still needed to confirm Luia's condition. They couldn't afford to be careless. Immediately, the forces in the Myriad Demons Ridge that were closer to the New Moon Gates base sent some people to the New Moon Gates base to investigate. Somewhere in the Cloudstream battlefield, the azure-robed Tan Xing's eyes were blood-red, and 2 streams of tears flowed down his cheeks. He had just received news from his sect from the 9 states about what had happened at the Spirit Stream battlefield. Clenching his fists, Tan Xing swore in his heart that if he didn't kill Luia, he wasn't human. From his point of view, it was not wrong for him to target Luia in the hunting ground. His only mistake was that he did not kill him and let Luia escape with his life. Even more unimaginable was the fact that Luia had barged into the Spirit Stream battlefield to exact revenge. He had caused the deaths of his own junior brothers and sisters, and had even killed his own brother. If Tan Xing and Luia were just enemies before, then this was a true blood feud. How could he not seek revenge for such hatred? Tan Xing was a Cloud River 9th Order cultivator, and had obtained many benefits in the hunting ground. Originally, he had planned to break through to the True Lake realm within a month, but in the current situation, he could no longer consider breaking through. With such a deep blood feud before him, Tan Xing had to do everything in his power to kill Luia and avenge his dead junior brothers and sisters. Spirit Stream battlefield, New Moon Gates base. On the steps in front of Heaven's secret hall, Luia was sitting casually, the purple thunder around his body almost completely gone. At this moment, he was talking to some of his friends. He didn't know how the news got out, but many people in the Spirit Stream battlefield knew that he had returned and even destroyed New Moon Gates encampment. The Guardian Envoys and Vice Envoys all became excited and sent him messages asking if he needed help. Back then, he had led a group of Grand Heaven Alliance's allied forces in the inner circle of the battlefield, earning many sects a lot of money. However, after entering the core circle, such benefits were no longer available. Now that he had returned, it was obvious that many people were eager to take action. There were also people asking him about his situation, obviously worried that he had killed too many people and had been devoured by the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. Luia replied to them one by one. It took quite a while for everything to end. There were people from Grand Heaven Alliance who were worried about his situation, but those from Myriad Demon Ridge should be even more concerned. He just didn't know what their reaction would be after they confirmed that he was safe and sound. Speaking of which, from a personal point of view, breaking into New Moon Gates base today was a huge loss. He had to pay close to 20,000 merit points in total. But from a sect's point of view, it was obviously a profit. Without mentioning anything else, Tao Zhengyu's plundering alone was worth more than 20,000 merit points. Of course, the most important thing was to vent the anger in his heart. He stood up with his long saber and called out to Tao Zhengyu, who was waiting beside him, "Let's go to the next one." There were so many masters who besieged him in the hunting ground that day, but he didn't know which sect most of them were from. He only knew that Tan Xing was from New Moon Gate and Wei Ke was from Cloud Sun sect. Tan Xing was the source of the incident, so Lu Yi went to New Moon Gate first. Wei Ke was the one who jumped around the most and shouted the most fiercely, so he was placed in the second sect. However, he couldn't kill that many people. He had no more spoils to sell, and there wasn't much fuel left in his talent tree. But Lu Yi believed that Cloud Sun sect would make a wise choice after learning from New Moon Gate's mistake. As for the sects that the others were from, regardless of which sect they were from, every sect in the core circle of Myriad Demon Ridge could be counted as one. They wouldn't be able to escape. Of course, Lu Yi wouldn't use such methods against those sects. Things like safety money could be collected a second time after the first time. He believed that Myriad Demon Ridge would be familiar with it after the first time. Who dared to not give it to them? New Moon Gate was a good example. As for destroying all the Myriad Demon Ridge bases, Lu Yi didn't do such a thing when he was at Sky 9 Realm. Naturally, he couldn't do it now. Once their bases were destroyed, those cultivators would become homeless. If it was just one or two sects, it wouldn't affect the overall situation. But if all the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators in the core circle were like that, then things would get out of hand. Without any worries, only God knew what they would do. The biggest possibility was that they would gather in one place and destroy Grand Heaven Alliance's bases one by one. Therefore, although Lu Yi had the means to do such a thing, he couldn't do it. Otherwise, it would only cause endless trouble for Grand Heaven Alliance. Everything had a trade-off. The situation at the Spirit Stream battlefield had been maintained for so many years. Rashly breaking it might not only bring benefit. Compared to a temporary victory, Lu Yi was more willing to gain some practical benefits. He took out a map and unexpectedly found that Cloud Sun sect's base wasn't too far away from New Moon Gate. With his speed, he could reach it in less than half a day. He took off on his magic tool. Not long after, a few streams of light suddenly appeared in front of him. He didn't know which camp they were from. They obviously noticed him, but they still flew in his direction. Obviously, they didn't take Lu Yi seriously because they had more people. More than 10 miles away, the few people were flying as they talked. One of them said, "Senior Brother Meow, that person can't be Lu Yi, right? I think he's coming from New Moon Gate space." The Tianzhou cultivator who was addressed as Senior Brother Meow said, "Don't think too much. Lu Yi forced his way into the Spirit Stream battlefield and killed so many people. Even if he's not dead, he should be surrounded by purple lightning. This person's body is clear and there's no sign of purple lightning on him. How can he be Lu Yi? He should be a passerby." "That's true." The person nodded. Senior Brother Meow ordered in a deep voice, "We're almost at New Moon Gate space. Everyone be alert. That Lu Yi kills people like flies. He's a great enemy of Wanmo Ridge. Don't let him find you. Remember, our mission is only to investigate his situation. We're not going to fight him. If you encounter any danger, run. There's no shame." "Yes." The few of them answered. They had received orders from their sect to come to New Moon Gate's base to investigate Lu Yi's situation, but they didn't expect Lu Yi to fly in their direction. They were a little far away, so they couldn't see Lu Yi's face clearly. It wasn't until they were less than 3 miles away that Senior Brother Meow frowned and looked at Lu Yi. They didn't change direction because they had more people, but the other party didn't seem to have any intention of changing direction either. This was strange. 4 cultivators to encounter each other in the wild. No one knew which faction the other party belonged to. If they really bumped into each other, it was very likely that it would cause some trouble. Generally speaking, the weaker side would change direction to avoid direct contact with the cultivators of unknown origins. Senior Brother Meow didn't know why the other party was so fearless. Senior Brother Meow looked up and focused his vision. His body immediately stiffened. He thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. When he looked carefully, he found that he was right. The person in front of him was the target he came to investigate. He immediately cried out in surprise, "Impossible!" Just as he said before, that Lu Yi had killed so many people. Even if he didn't die, he would definitely be entangled by the purple lightning. Therefore, he didn't expect that the person flying towards them was actually Lu Yi. Looking at Lu Yi now, there wasn't any purple lightning entangling him. Heaven's secret didn't seem to punish him at all. It would be fine if it was just a simple appearance, but the key point was that there was a snow-white little beast sitting on his shoulder. If it wasn't Luia, who else could it be? Moreover, the other party was obviously coming from New Moon Gate space. They were only 2 miles away. Chapter 541. Run! Senior Brother Meow's mind spun rapidly as he yelled. The few junior brothers and sisters were confused. The one who spoke before asked, "Senior Brother Meow?" "That's Luia, run." As Senior Brother Meow spoke, he took out his spirit artifact and got into a defensive posture. Clearly, he wanted to stay and buy time for his junior brothers and sisters to escape. One had to admit that as a senior brother, he was quite responsible. Their faces changed greatly when they heard this, and they were at a loss for what to do. A person's name was like a tree's shadow. In the Cloud River battlefield, Luia was unknown, but in the Spirit Stream battlefield, it was not an exaggeration to say that everyone knew him, especially after what he had just done in New Moon Gate's encampment. He had single-handedly breached the encampment of a core circle sect and killed over 50 people in a row. Such a shocking achievement would have a huge impact on anyone. No one would have thought that they would run into this god of plague on this trip to the New Moon sect space. After a moment of hesitation, it was too late to escape. Luia's figure was already a few hundred meters away. "Act according to my eyes," Senior Brother Meow yelled and secretly urged his spirit power. The others also acted as if they were facing a great enemy. They quickly took out their spirit artifacts and stood behind Senior Brother Meow, looking like they were going to advance and retreat with him. After a short while, Luia was less than 100 meters away from them and went straight ahead. Senior Brother Meow and his group froze in midair. Their expressions were solemn, and beads of sweat slid down their faces. Only when Luia left did they start to breathe heavily. In that instant they thought they were dead for sure, but they did not expect Luia to leave just like that. Did he not see them? Of course not. They were less than 100 meters away, and Luia was not blind. How could he not see them? Since it was not that he did not see them, it was that he simply ignored them. The others were still fine. They escaped from death and rejoiced. Only Senior Brother Meow was rejoicing and ashamed. He was rejoicing that Luia did not attack them. Otherwise they would have died. He was ashamed that he actually felt lucky. Luia was currently in the 9th stage of heaven, and so was Meng Hao. Although Meng Hao had the courage to fight Luia, he wasn't confident in being able to defeat him. After all, Luia was in the top 50 of the Spirit Stream list. Senior Brother Meow. A junior sister's voice trembled. "He's back." Senior Brother Meow abruptly turned his head, and sure enough, he saw Luyi, who should have left, turn around and fly back. Were they still going to make a move? Senior Apprentice Brother Meow made up his mind. Even if he died here today, he would let this sect exterminator Yi know that the cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge were not easy to bully. The flying spirit artifact stopped less than 1,000 feet away from them. This distance was enough for the cultivators of Tianjiu to attack. "Myriad Devil Ridge?" Lu Yi asked. Senior Apprentice Brother Meow was so nervous that he almost used his imperial equipment to attack. When he came to his senses, he nodded with a serious expression. The person standing in front of him did not seem to be a cultivator of the same level, but a true Lake Spirit Sea stage expert. He felt even more ashamed. Facing Luia, he realized that he didn't have the determination that he had imagined. He didn't even have the courage to refuse to answer. "From the looks of it, you should know who I am." "Then, I won't talk nonsense. Don't be nervous. I don't have any killing intent today, so I won't do anything to you." The main reason was that killing people was too much of a loss. In the past, killing people in the Spirit Stream battlefield would earn him merit points. Now, not only would his merit points be deducted, he would also have to spend merit points to buy the Earth Core Fire to burn the soul extinguishing divine thunder. Senior apprentice Brother Meow and the others' eyes twitched. They had just broken into the New Moon sect's encampment and killed more than 50 people. How could this not have any killing intent? What do you want? Senior apprentice Brother Meow braced himself and asked. Go back and pass a message to your sections. Tell them the same old rules. In 10 days, come to the Heavenly Sword Peak. If I don't see what I want in 10 days, I will visit every sect. Then, Lu Yi turned and left, leaving behind Senior Apprentice Brother Meow and the others with uncertain expressions. After Lu Ye's figure disappeared, someone asked, Senior Apprentice Brother Meow, what did he mean? Senior Apprentice Brother Meow didn't answer. He naturally knew what Lu Ye meant. After all, this kind of thing had only happened once in a few months. At that time, the core sects of the myriad Devil Ridge weren't prepared to cooperate. After all, who would be willing to give away so many resources for no reason, and to the enemy? But after Lu Ye's battle with an overlord-level demonic beast, he became an overlord-level existence as a spirit stream realm cultivator. Those sects that weren't prepared to cooperate obediently. Their fists weren't as big as others, and they had learned from their mistakes, so what else could they do if they didn't cooperate? Compared to the resources they had to give, the losses of their encampments were unimaginable. Let's go. Senior Apprentice Brother Meow called out and hurried back to his encampment. He had to spread the news as soon as possible. As for the rest, it wasn't something a spirit stream realm cultivator could think about. The sect's experts would weigh the consequences. Half an hour later, Lu Ye's request was reported by Senior Apprentice Brother Meow, and then quickly spread to the first, second, and third rank sects of the myriad Devil Ridge. After hearing the news, the first thing the sects paid attention to was not Lu Ye's rude request, but Lu Ye's current state. According to the observation of Senior Apprentice Brother Meow and the others, Lu Ye didn't have the slightest trace of purple lightning on his body. He was clearly in a normal state. This puzzled the countless experts of the myriad Devil Ridge. More than 50 disciples of the New Moon sect had died at Lu Ye's hands. Those cultivators who escaped from the encampment saw with their own eyes that this guy was surrounded by purple lightning. How long had it been? How could the soul-extinguishing divine thunder that even Spirit Sea realm cultivators feared disappear? It wasn't until Senior Apprentice Brother Meow and the others swore an oath that this news was conclusively confirmed. The myriad Devil Ridge couldn't help but be in a daze. They were expecting Lu Ye to be unable to bear the torture of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. Even if he didn't die, he wouldn't be able to stir up trouble again. But now, it seemed that he had used some unknown method to suppress or even eliminate the soul-extinguishing divine thunder that wrapped around his body. The myriad Devil Ridge's side was more inclined to the former possibility. After all, to be able to eliminate the punishment of Heaven's secret, this method was a bit unimaginable. They also remembered the woman named Wei Yang from the Jade Blood sect. She had broken into the Spirit Stream battlefield twice and killed many myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. After being punished by Heaven's secret, she was still safe and sound. Did the Jade Blood sect really have some special method to suppress the punishment of Heaven's secret? If so, then things would be troublesome. In the face of sect extinguishing Yi, they couldn't beat him, nor could they defend against him. There seemed to be no other choice but to obediently cooperate with him and quell his anger. Most of the myriad Devil Ridge's sects were indignant because none of their own cultivators had made things difficult for Lu Ye in the hunting ground. As a result, they had also suffered an unexpected calamity. Lu Ye obviously didn't know who had made things difficult for him in the hunting ground, so he directly caught them all in one fell swoop. How could they be willing to accept this? A few months ago, they had already sent Lu Ye some money, which was a shame that the myriad Devil Ridge couldn't wash away. A few months later, this kind of shame would happen again? What was the difference between this and rubbing salt on the wound? Most importantly, Lu Ye was from the Jade Blood sect, and the Jade Blood sect was from the Grand Heaven Alliance. The money sent by so many first, second, and third grade sects was a huge amount of resources. This was enough to support the enemy. Last time, the Jade Blood sect had received a sum of money. Such a huge amount of wealth was enough for the Jade Blood sect to not have to worry about the consumption of their disciples' cultivation for the next few decades. It was said that the Jade Blood sect's disciples' monthly salary was comparable to that of the top first-grade sects in the 9 regions. It could be said that they were rich and imposing. Even the treatment of some nominal disciples was better than that of many large sections. For a 9th-grade sect's disciples to have such rich treatment, it was the blood of the various large sects in the myriad Devil Ridge. If this happened again, who knew what kind of development the Jade Blood sect would have in the future? Fortunately, Liu Ye had given them 10 days, the same as last time, so there was still room for discussion in the myriad Devil Ridge. Whether to compromise or not was a big problem. For a time, many Divine Sea Realm cultivators from different sects gathered together to discuss this matter. Soon, someone raised a key question. That was why Liu Ye didn't kill Senior Brother Miao and the others. If he simply wanted someone to deliver a message, it would be enough to leave one person alive. It could even be said that Liu Ye could go to any of the myriad Devil Ridges stations and deliver the message personally. Senior Brother Miao and the others were all safe and sound. Liu Ye didn't even have the intention to attack them from the beginning to the end. This was very thought-provoking. With his powerful means in the New Moon Sect station, Senior Brother Miao and the others couldn't have escaped from him. Although Liu Ye said that he didn't have any murderous intent and let them go, if one looked at it carefully, this statement was indeed full of flaws. Liu Ye must have some scruples, so he didn't attack Senior Brother Miao and the others. This discovery made the eyes of many Divine Sea Realm cultivators light up. Someone said slowly, "Now we are speculating that the Jade Blood sect has some special means to suppress the divine punishment. But what if this means has some drawbacks?" "Senior Chen, what do you mean?" someone asked. Senior Chen stroked his beard and said, "I have lived for so many years and have never heard of anyone who can compete with the divine punishment. Suppressing the divine punishment sounds funny, but the truth is right in front of us. I will believe it this time. However, such a method is so heaven-defying that it must have a great price to pay. It is very likely that Liu Ye doesn't want to kill, but that he can't kill anymore." Hearing this, many Divine Sea Realm cultivators' eyes lit up. Immediately, someone nodded and said, "Senior Chen is right. Maybe if Liu Ye kills again, the suppressed divine punishment will erupt even more fiercely. If so, doesn't that mean he is bluffing? Do you remember when he was in the Heaven 9 realm? He broke through nearly 30 sects in the core circle? That's why we had no choice but to compromise. But now? Half a day has passed. If he can break through another station, why wouldn't he put pressure on us?" Chapter 542. In the main hall, as the Divine Sea Realm cultivators spoke, the situation seemed to become clearer. No matter what method Liu Ye used to suppress Tianji's punishment, he must have paid a huge price. Moreover, at this moment it was very likely that he could no longer kill. If that was the case, then why should the myriad Demon Ridge be afraid of him? Although he had the ability to sneak into other people's bases, under the restriction of not being able to kill, his threat to the myriad Demon Ridge was almost negligible. Of course, this was just a guess. Without concrete evidence, it could not be confirmed. "It's simple to verify," someone said. "First, find out where Liu Ye is, then find some Tianjiu cultivators to test him. Then, we'll know if he can kill again." "That makes sense. Let's do that. Does anyone have any objections?" "I agree. No objections. I have a suggestion. Try to find Tianjiu, who is on the spirit stream list. He is too weak to verify anything. Also, if possible, maybe we can take the opportunity to eliminate him." "Okay, then it's settled. My Baiwa sect can send one person. Bay Pavilion can send one. Flying Thunder sect can send one. A group of divine sea realm cultivators spoke one after another. Soon, a team of 20 or 30 people was decided. All of them were on the spirit stream list, and many of them were ranked in the top 20. Sitting at the head of the table, a divine sea realm cultivator who had not spoken until now said, "Then please send the message to the spirit stream battlefield and let the little guy move out." Everyone accepted the order and immediately began to send the message. However, at this moment there seemed to be some information coming from outside. Many divine sea realm cultivators began to investigate one after another. After a while, their expressions became serious. Even the divine sea realm cultivator who had spoken just now frowned. He raised his hand and said, "What we were discussing just now, stop for now." He raised his turbid eyes and glanced around the hall. He slowly said, "We received news that the Cloud Sunsex base was breached by Luia half an hour ago. More than a dozen people died." As soon as he said that, the entire main hall quieted down. These warriors of the spirit sea realm were still discussing how to prove their speculation. But now, it seemed that there was no need to do so. Luia had already killed his way to the Yunyang sect, and killed more than a dozen warriors of the Yunyang sect. Naturally, their speculation was not valid. A powerful warrior at the spirit sea realm was enraged. He gritted his teeth and shouted in a low voice, "Bastard!" This person was a warrior in the spirit sea realm from the Yunyang sect. He happened to be here. He had also received a message from his own sect and knew what had happened at the spirit stream battlefield. Although compared to New Moon sect, their casualties were much lower, but that was because they had learned from New Moon sect's example. The Cloudy Sun sect's cultivators were more decisive in retreating. Otherwise, based on Luia's methods, he would have killed a river of blood and mountains of corpses. "Does anyone have a map of the spirit stream battlefield?" the old man asked. He had never imagined that, as a divine sea cultivator, he would be personally involved in the spirit stream battlefield. However, the spirit stream realm was the foundation of every sect, and the matter had already reached the point where he had to intervene. "I do." As the voice spoke, a map of the spirit stream battlefield was taken out. The divine sea realm cultivator poured his spiritual power into it, and someone else raised his hand to construct a strange spiritual pattern. The spiritual pattern and the map were linked together. In the next moment, a huge diagram appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The diagram was none other than the map of the spirit stream battlefield. New Moon sect's encampment isn't close to the Cloudy Sun sect's encampment, but it isn't far either. The old man at the head looked at the map and continued, "With Luia's strength, he should only need half a day to arrive. However, there are other sects in between the two encampments. Why did Luia not invade those other sects' encampments, but attack the Cloudy Sun sects?" Judging from Luia's route, he was specifically targeting the Cloudy Sun sect's encampment. "Brother Fu, what's the reason behind this?" The divine sea realm cultivator from the Cloudy Sun sect, the one surnamed Fu, had an ugly expression on his face as he said, "We've received news that a disciple from our sect, Wei Kei, was among those who attacked Luia in the spirit stream battlefield. This should be the reason why Luia came looking for us." As soon as he said that, the expressions of many divine sea realm cultivators turned ugly. First, it was Tan Xing's New Moon sect, followed by Wei Kei's Cloudy Sun sect. Luia was clearly targeting them. However, these two people weren't the only ones who had attacked Luia in the spirit stream battlefield. Many of their sects had also participated in the attack. Didn't this mean that Luia would also run to their own encampments? There were still some people who weren't sure about this, as they didn't know if any of their disciples had participated in the spirit stream battlefield. This was a huge crisis. They all sent out messages, telling the disciples of the spirit stream battlefield to be on guard. Once they discovered any traces of Luia, they were to immediately retreat back to the 9 prefectures. Now that their encampments had been destroyed, the support from the heavenly fate pillar would definitely be lost. The only thing they could protect now was the lives of their own disciples. Brother Fu, did heavenly fate punish Luya after he killed someone? The cultivator surnamed Fu said, "Let me ask." He sent a message back to his sect to inquire about the situation, and soon received a reply. Yes. Ever since he killed the first person, he has been surrounded by purple lightning. In the large hall, there were close to 100 divine sea realm cultivators, and all of them fell silent. They couldn't understand the situation on Luya's side. Originally, they had guessed that he had some special method to suppress the punishment from heavenly fate. However, from the information they had obtained, it seemed that something was wrong. If he really had some method to suppress it, there was no reason for him to be surrounded by purple lightning. However, if he hadn't been suppressed, how could Luya be safe and sound? After a long while, the old man sitting at the head of the table said, "A few months ago, our myriad demon ridge had already compromised once. It has only been a few months, yet Luya has actually made such a rude request again. We can't allow this evil trend to grow. Otherwise, if he comes every few months in the future, could it be that we have to compromise every time?" Everyone fell silent. Thinking about it carefully, although Luya was a little despicable, he was still a reasonable person. After receiving the safety money last time, he didn't make things difficult for the myriad Devil Ridges sections. Not long after, he reached the Cloud River realm and left the Spirit Stream battlefield. This time there was a reason for this. If he hadn't been targeted in the hunting ground, he wouldn't have come to the Spirit Stream battlefield. Of course, that was what they thought, but they wouldn't say it out loud. "What do you think, Old Chen?" someone asked. "Find some people to enter the Spirit Stream battlefield and explain the situation to him. I don't think this kid is a brainless person. I think he knows what the consequences are if he is too reckless." Then, Old Chen explained his plan. After hearing it, the Divine Sea Realm cultivators nodded in agreement. In any case, Luya had given them a deadline of 10 days, so no matter what the result was, it was better to talk to him first. Although there wasn't much hope, what if they reached an agreement? Even if they couldn't reach an agreement, they still had 10 days to prepare. They couldn't just give him whatever he wanted. How would the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators behave in the future? Wouldn't they care about their reputation? While the Divine Sea Realm cultivators were discussing, in the Cloudy Sun Sect's encampment, Lu Yi was immersed in checking the situation of his talent tree. A large amount of gray mist was burning on the tree, indicating that there was still enough fuel. The main reason was that he didn't kill too many people this time. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that he didn't kill enough. After realizing that Lu Yi had killed his way into the encampment, the Cloudy Sun Sect's cultivators quickly began to evacuate. In a short time, all of them had fled. It also saved Lu Yi some trouble. The only thing that made him feel helpless was his merit points. He had already spent all his merit points to buy the Earth Core Fire to fuel his talent tree. In the end, after this round of killing, the contribution points displayed in his battlefield imprint had changed to owed 435 contribution points. This was the first time Lu Yi knew that merit points could be owed. It was an eye-opener. From the looks of it, Tianji would never make a losing deal. Lu Yi was convinced. Fortunately, he still had some spoils of war. After picking and choosing, he threw them all into Tianji's treasure house. Only then did he pay off the merit points he owed. Lu Yi didn't know what the consequences of owing Tianji merit points would be, because no one had ever done this before. After all, who would owe merit points? However, during the short time he owed Tianji merit points, he had a feeling of uneasiness, as if something bad would happen to him at any time. From the looks of it, owing Tianji merit points was very likely to affect one's luck and make everything go wrong. Someone with such amazing luck like him had such a feeling after owing Tianji merit points. One could imagine what would happen to ordinary people if they owed Tianji merit points. They might even fall down while walking and choke on water. As the talent tree continued to burn, the purple lightning lingering on the surface of his body slowly dissipated. Tao Jingyu walked out of Tianji Hall and said excitedly, "Fifth senior brother, where are we going next?" He was also addicted to the taste. Following his fifth senior brother, there was no danger at all, and he could even plunder the blessings of other sects, especially those from the core circle. Although the blessings he plundered had to be converted into merit points when he returned to the sect's encampment, as the current guardian of Blue Blood sect's encampment, he could still give himself some preferential treatment and receive a monthly salary. Not to mention anything else, he wouldn't have to worry about merit points to buy heaven-grade secret arts in the future. This could also be considered his travel expenses for following Lu Yi on this business trip, and he believed that his second senior sister would also allow it. Looking at the previous guardian of Blue Blood sect, only he and his fifth senior brother had plundered the blessings of enemy encampments. The others had never had this opportunity. He was extremely proud to be able to enter Blue Blood sect. Thinking back, he was just a loose cultivator, alone and helpless. He couldn't even guarantee his own cultivation resources. However, after joining Blue Blood sect, his life became better and better. Now, the monthly salary he received from the sect was comparable to the treatment of a first-grade sect's disciple. Just this alone was enough to make 90% of the Spirit Stream Realm cultivators in the 9 provinces envious. Chapter 543. The Blue Blood sect had formed an alliance with countless sects in the inner and core circles. After their disciples reached a certain level of cultivation, they could freely choose where they wanted to go to. Recently, many Blue Blood sect disciples had left their station and entered the inner circle. Some chose to attach themselves to other sects, while others, like Chen Yu, entered the inner circle alone. It was their freedom to choose, and no one was forced to do so. The Union sects also sent their disciples to the Blue Blood sect to gain experience and cultivate, increasing the strength of the Blue Blood sect. A few days ago, an insect tide appeared, but the Blue Blood sect only treated the insect nest as a treasure trove to earn merit points. They exhausted the life cores in the insect nest to end the battle. In the entire outer circle, the Blue Blood sect station was worthy of being called a giant. With the Blue Blood sect station as the origin point, the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators didn't dare to set foot in a 1,000-kilometer radius. It was said that several myriad Demon Ridge forces near the Blue Blood sect station had recently intended to relocate. There was no other way. If they couldn't survive, what else could they do but relocate? There's no next one. Hearing Tao Jingyu's question, Lu Yi stood up and stretched. He also wanted to go to the next one, but there were some things he couldn't do. This time, no matter what, he was bullying the weak. It was a little different from when he was in the 9 Heavens realm. Of course, the most important thing was that he didn't know where the Cloud River 9th Order cultivators who besieged him in the hunting ground came from. Otherwise, he could have fought them openly. He only knew where Tan Sheng and Wei Kei came from because of Li Baxian and Xia Qianqian. There was also a guy who used a saber. People called him Xiaoliang, and he seemed to be from the Wild Saber sect. His saber cultivation experience seemed to have been settled. Oh, Tao Jingyu responded obediently. Although he was a little disappointed, he didn't insist on anything. The harvest this time was rich enough. Send junior brother Tao back to the station. Be careful, Lu Yi instructed. Got it. Be careful, Yi responded and summoned a flight-type spirit artifact. She also had her own flight-type spirit artifact, but she usually followed Lu Yi and didn't have a chance to use it. A moment later, Yi and Tao Jingyu flew off on their flying tools and flew towards the Blue Blood sect station. The strength she and Hu Po could display now was at the level of Tianjiu, so they wouldn't encounter any danger in the Spirit Stream battlefield. This was especially true now that the various great sects of Myriad Demon Ridge were on high alert for Lu Ye's arrival, so no master would wander around. But with their strength, even if they really ran into 1 or 2 Heavenly 9, they could also handle it. Therefore, Lu Yi wasn't worried about Yi and Hu Po's safety at all. Lu Yi quickly summoned his own air transportation spiritual artifact and stepped onto it. Then, he leisurely flew toward a certain direction. He wanted to go to the sky sword peak and wait for the myriad devil ridge to send something over. After being busy for so long, it was time to reap the rewards. The agreed time was 10 days, so he wasn't in a hurry. He walked around and looked around, carefree and unfettered. On his side, he was free and unfettered, but many cultivators of the myriad devil ridge had to suffer. Almost every myriad devil ridge station had received a message from the main sect, telling them to be on guard against Lu Yi. If they found any traces of Lu Yi, they were to immediately retreat to the 9 states. This caused almost all the cultivators in the myriad devil ridge's core station to be on high alert, afraid that the sect exterminating leaf would suddenly come to kill them. This was especially so for the few sects that were closer to the Cloudy Sun sect's station. But after waiting for a long time, no one saw any trace of the sect exterminating leaf. After he broke through the Cloudy Sun sect station, he disappeared. 2 days later, Lu Yi arrived at the Sky Sword Peak. A few months ago, he came here once, waiting to receive the safety money from the myriad devil ridge. He originally thought that after leaving the Spirit Stream battlefield, he would never set foot here again. He didn't expect that there would be a day when he would come here again and do the same thing as a few months ago. The affairs of the world were truly unpredictable. Landing on the Sky Sword Peak, he casually found a flat rock and sat down cross-legged with the mountain plate saber beside him. Looking at the rolling sea of clouds in front of him, Lu Yi suddenly regretted giving the myriad devil ridge such a long time limit. Being in the Spirit Stream battlefield, he couldn't cultivate because his cultivation had already surpassed the Spirit Stream realm. So, even if he breathed in the spirit chi of heaven and earth or swallowed spirit pills, it was useless. Helpless, he could only look for the books that he had taken from Madame Yun and study them. He had read these books more than once, but every time he read them again, he would gain something new. He also learned some interesting spirit runes from the books. However, because these spirit runes weren't on the talent tree, it would take a lot of practice to construct these spirit runes, and there was even a risk of failure. So far, among the spirit runes that Lu Yi had learned from the books, the most useful one for him was undoubtedly the Void Spirit rune. If it weren't for the Void Spirit rune, he wouldn't have been able to escape death so many times in the hunting ground, and he wouldn't have been able to hold on for so long under the pursuit of so many experts. This spirit rune was a very promising spirit rune. Lu Yi had always had a thought that there must be a Void Spirit rune on the talent tree, but he had never been able to activate it, let alone know which leaves it was on. If he could activate the Void Spirit rune on the talent tree, it would be much more convenient for him to set up a teleportation array in the future. If that was the case, he only needed to set up a mother array. As long as he was in the range of the teleportation array, he could activate the Void Spirit rune to return to the mother array at any time. There was no need to bother setting up a child array at all. A simple Void Spirit rune had the effect of teleportation. The purpose of setting up a formation with it as the core was to make the spirit rune stronger and more stable. Without the restriction of the formation's framework, and without someone to maintain it, the spirit rune would be easily destroyed. He could even construct the Void Spirit rune on his Imperial equipment and use it to develop some new killing method. Of course, these were all ideas he came up with in his free time. If he wanted to do this, he would have to burn the Void Spirit rune leaves on the talent tree. While he was reading on the Heavenly Sword Peak, 2 figures flew out on their artifacts from a certain sect's encampment in the core circle. They were a man and a woman. The man looked to be in his 30s or 40s. He had a dignified appearance and a stalwart figure. At first glance, one could tell that he was a person of high status. The woman was beautiful. From her appearance alone, it was impossible to tell her age. It was not a problem to say that she was 16 or 17, but it was also not a problem to say that she was 24 or 25. She was tall and slender, but what was rare was that her figure was extremely voluptuous. These two were both ninth-order true Lake Realm Masters. They had never thought that they would have the opportunity to enter the Spirit Stream battlefield in this life and shoulder the mission of negotiating with a little Cloud River Realm brat. Previously, the Spirit Sea Realm Masters had discussed this matter and finally chose these two to come. The main reason was that this matter was neither big nor small, so it was not appropriate for a Spirit Sea Realm Master to come personally. If the negotiations fell through, it would be difficult to resolve the situation, and if a fight broke out, there would be no way to end it. Of course, the most important thing was that Lu Yi had the strength of an overlord. Those Spirit Sea Realm Masters really did not have the confidence to defeat him. It would be fine if they won, but what if they lost? They were all Spirit Sea Realm cultivators. If they were pressed to the ground and taught a lesson by a 17 or 18-year-old boy, what kind of scandal would that be? Therefore, after much discussion, it was more appropriate to have a true Lake Realm Master come. Firstly, it would show sincerity, and secondly, a true Lake Realm cultivator would be able to grasp the propriety of the negotiation. The original candidates were two men, but at the last moment, a Spirit Sea Realm Master spoke up and let the woman replace one of them. The basket-like flying spirit artifact was very beautiful. Together with the woman's beautiful face and voluptuous figure, it was enough to attract the attention of 99% of the men in the world. Yun Qingyu stood on the flower basket and looked up at the clouds in the sky, feeling a little annoyed. It was not only the gazes that swept over her from time to time, but also the advice of the Spirit Sea Realm Senior before she left. She did not know where the Spirit Sea Realm Senior got the news, but it was said that the sect Exterminating Leaf did not have any other preferences except for big and round girls. Therefore, she was the original candidate for the negotiation, in hopes that she would perform well. Firstly, her figure was outstanding, which was very much in line with the sect Exterminating Leaf's preferences. Secondly, her age could not be seen from her appearance, so it was easy for people to mistake her for a teenage girl, which would make Lu Yi less wary. Wasn't it normal for a 17 or 18-year-old, hot-blooded young man to lust after beautiful women? There were so many female cultivators in the Wan Mo Ridge, so why did he choose her? But since a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator had spoken, how could she refuse? She could only brace herself and go, hoping that she would not suffer too much humiliation. She knew that she would not be able to defeat a Spirit Stream Realm overlord. As for the rumor that the sect Exterminating Leaf liked big and round girls, it was said that there was proof of this. He had once challenged the Spirit Stream list, and almost all of his opponents, regardless of gender, had died. Only a girl named Bailan had survived, and that Bailan was big and round. He even killed female cultivators, which meant that Lu Yi was not a person who had tender feelings for the fairer sect. But he had let Bailan go, which was naturally thought-provoking. Junior Sister Yun, there is no need to be so anxious. That little brat gave a deadline of 10 days, and only 2 days have passed. With our speed, 1 day is enough to reach the Heavenly Sword Peak. Wu Jun, who was following behind Yun Qingyu, said. They did not belong to the same sect, but they had interacted with each other when they were young. Speaking of which, he had also been tempted by this junior sister Yun in the past. After all, in their era, Yun Qingyu was a heavenly girl who made all the young men in the Wan Mo Ridge crazy and infatuated. Very few people were not tempted by her appearance. Unfortunately, he was unknown back then and could only watch from afar. Now, he was also a true Lake Realm 9th Order cultivator, and had hopes of reaching the Spirit Sea Realm in the future. He was no longer as immature and humble as he was when he was young, and had a calmer temperament. Although he still felt that this heavenly girl was pleasing to the eye, he would not think too much about her. However, it was rare to be able to travel together with the heavenly girl of his dreams, so it was more or less a joyful thing. Therefore, he was not in a hurry, and even wished to walk slowly. Chapter 544. Yun Qingyue said, "Although there are still 10 days left, the negotiations have not reached a conclusion. We have to leave enough time for the sects to prepare, so we have to hurry." Saying so, not only did she not slow down, she even sped up. Seeing this, Wu Jun could only helplessly keep up. As they sped along, the heavenly sword peak came into view. Wu Jun suddenly said, "Actually, we can try to let ghost cultivators kill him. If we can kill him, all our troubles will be solved." "But what if we can't kill him?" "If they couldn't kill him, they would only enrage Luye, and the consequences would be unpredictable." In fact, the Divine Sea Realm cultivators had considered sending ghost cultivators with high cultivation, but it was too risky. Luye was proficient in formations. Even if he stayed on the Heavenly Sword Peak, he would have set up some warning formations around him. The ghost cultivators might not be able to safely sneak up on him. Once he found them, with his overlord-level strength, the ghost cultivators would not have a good ending. It was because of this concern that the myriad Devil Ridge did not dare to act rashly, and instead sent Wu Jun and Yun Qingyue to negotiate. When they arrived at the sky above the Sky Sword Peak, the two of them looked around and saw the lonely figure sitting on the Spirit Peak. "Over there," Yun Qingyue said as she controlled her flying spirit tool to descend. Wu Jun followed closely behind. In a moment, the two landed 10 feet in front of Luye. Looking carefully, the two were secretly shocked. There was no other trace of purple lightning on Luye's body. According to the information they had received, after Luye broke into the New Moon sect's base and killed more than 50 people, the purple lightning on his body was so dense that it almost condensed. However, when he appeared at the Cloud Sun sect's base half a day later, the purple lightning disappeared. When he killed again, the purple lightning reappeared. But now, the purple lightning was gone again. This undoubtedly meant that Luye did have the means to suppress the heavenly punishment, but was there really such a miraculous method in this world? While the two were observing Luye, who was studying a book, also looked at them. At first glance, he was attracted by Yun Qingyue, and his eyes lit up. A woman who could be called a heavenly maiden by the men of an era was naturally beautiful. Beautiful things could always make people happy. His gaze shifted downwards, and his eyes became much brighter. This small action naturally could not be hidden from Yun Qingyue's eyes. She felt helpless in her heart. This little guy in front of her was indeed as the rumors said. Fortunately, although he was looking, there was no lust in his eyes, and he quickly looked away. Luye glanced at Wu Jun again and didn't pay much attention to him. What was certain was that these two people were not in the Spirit Stream tier, and were not even in the Cloud River tier. At the very least, they were in the True Lake tier, and could not possibly be in the Immortal Ocean tier. What made Luye slightly suspicious was this woman's age. From her appearance, this woman was not older than him, but how could a True Lake stage cultivator be so young? He could not tell her age from her appearance, so he could only say that this woman took good care of herself. "Are you fellow Taoist Luye of the Jade Blood sect?" Yun Qingyue spoke first. The youth in front of her was the only person from ancient times to the present who had single-handedly stirred up the Spirit Stream battlefield and rendered the myriad Devil Ridge powerless. Therefore, even though Yun Qingyue's cultivation was much higher than Luye's, she did not have the slightest intention of underestimating him. Moreover, she was a gentlewoman. Before coming here, she had already seen a portrait of Luye, and the appearance matched. However, she still had to ask. Not only was her appearance beautiful and pleasing to the eye, but her voice was also very soft and pleasant to the ear, like a spring breeze caressing one's ears. She was a True Lake stage cultivator, and yet she lowered herself to address Luye as fellow Taoist, showing her sincerity. With her low cultivation and status, she could have called Luye as little friend or even directly called him by his name. "It's me." Luye put away the book in his hand. He secretly wondered why the myriad Devil Ridge had sent such a woman to find him. He quickly came to the conclusion that these two people were not here to deliver the safety money. "What evidence do you have to prove that you are Luya?" Wu Jun suddenly asked. Before coming here, he had already discussed it with Yun Qingyu. Between the two of them, one would play the bad cop, while the other would play the good cop. Negotiations were always like this. This was also the reason why the myriad Devil Ridge had chosen two people to come here. If both of them were easy to talk to, then there would be no point in negotiating. They would just agree to whatever the other party said. Therefore, one of them had to play the bad cop, so as to show the other party's sincerity and make it easier to bargain. Wu Jun did not have any subjective malice towards Lu Yi. The difference in cultivation was obvious. However, as a cultivator of the myriad Devil Ridge, Lu Ye's actions made him feel like he had a common enemy. Naturally, he would not be too polite with his words. "What proof do you want?" Lu Yi did not believe that these two people had not seen his portrait or video before coming here. Wu Jun said, "I heard that Lu Yi has a small white beast by his side that never leaves his side. I don't seem to have seen it. It's not here." Yi wanted to send Tao Zhengyu back to the encampment, so Hu Pa had to come along. A spirit and a Yao were born together, so they could not be separated too far. Cloud River cultivators barge into the spirit stream battlefield. After killing someone, they will be punished by heaven's secret. Soul-extinguishing divine lightning is wrapped around them, but I don't see any traces of it. How can you prove that you are Luya? Wu Jun took advantage of the situation to pursue. No matter what, he had to show Luya his strength. He had to let Luya know that the myriad Devil Ridge was not a soft persimmon that he could bully as he pleased. Most importantly, Wu Jun wanted to know what method Lu Yi used to suppress Heaven's Secret's punishment. If he could figure this out, then any price would be worth it. Whoosh! A light sound rang out as the mountain pan saber was unsheathed. The saber flashed as three crescent-shaped saber lights slashed out towards Wu Jun. Wu Jun did not expect Lu Yi to attack him. Seeing the three saber lights slashing towards him, his expression froze. He immediately circulated his spiritual energy and blood to protect his body. He was a body cultivator, and a true lake stage body cultivator at that. He had already surpassed the stage of relying on spirit tools to protect himself. His own body was his strongest defense. With three muffled sounds, Wu Jun's body flashed with spiritual energy. He was forced back a few steps by the three saber lights before stabilizing himself. His expression immediately turned serious. Even Yun Qingyue, who was watching from the side, revealed a shocked expression. Only now did she understand that the rumors were true. Lu Ye really did have the strength of an overlord. Those three saber lights had already exceeded her understanding of the strength that a spirit stream stage cultivator could display. "Can you prove it now?" Lu Yi slowly sheathed his saber. Wu Jun did not say a word, but his heart was filled with shock. Although it was only three saber lights, it was enough for him to see the big picture. If it was a real life or death battle, with the strength that he could display now, he would not be able to last more than 3 moves against Lu Ye. The younger generation would surpass the older. "Fellow Taoist Lu, please calm down. Senior Martial Brother Wu and I have indeed never seen fellow Taoist Lu before. Moreover, today's matter is of great importance. Senior Martial Brother Wu is just being cautious and has no ill intentions." Saying so, she gracefully bowed towards Lu Yi. "Snow Feather Sex Yun Qingyue greets fellow Taoist Lu." Wu Jun also unwillingly cupped his fists and said in a muffled voice, "Wind Cloud Manor's Wu Jun." Lu Yi had seen Snow Feather Sect and Wind Cloud Manor on the 10-point map. Both were first-grade sects, one from Thunder Prefecture and the other from Serene Prefecture. These were all marked on the 10-point map. Lu Yi nodded slightly and returned the greeting, "Jade Blood Sex Lu Yi." Although they were in different camps, the other party was still a true lake stage expert. Since the other party took the initiative to greet him, he could not be rude. What business do the two of you have here? You don't look like you're here to deliver something, Lu Yi said bluntly. Yun Qingyue said, to be honest, the Divine Sea Realm cultivators are still discussing whether to agree to fellow Taoists' request. After all, this has happened once before. At that time, the Myriad Devil Ridge compromised. We thought that fellow Taoist would never return after leaving the Spirit Stream battlefield, but who would have thought that in a mere few months, the same thing will happen again? The Divine Sea Realm cultivators find it difficult to accept. The main reason was that they did not expect Lu Yi to be able to kill people without restraint on the Spirit Stream battlefield after advancing to the Cloud River tier. Under normal circumstances, high-level cultivators would be restrained if they barged into the Spirit Stream battlefield, but Lu Yi was able to do so without restraint. Senior Marshal Brother Wu and I have come here on the orders of many Divine Sea Realm cultivators to discuss a mutually acceptable proposal with fellow Taoist Lu. Lu Ye's gaze was fixed on Yun Qingyue, who responded with a smile. What do you want to discuss? Yun Qingyue said, no matter what, fellow Taoist Lu is bullying the weak this time. There are rules on the battlefield. Fellow Taoist, you forced your way into the Spirit Stream battlefield as a Cloud River tier cultivator and even destroyed the encampment of 2 major sects of the Myriad Devil Ridge. This is really not right. If the cultivators of the major forces do this, wouldn't the Spirit Stream battlefield be in chaos in the future? What do you think? In this world, besides me, who else has this ability? Yun Qingyue was at a loss for words. This was the problem that the Myriad Devil Ridge could not solve. If this problem was not solved, they would never be qualified to negotiate with Lu Yi. If anyone from the Myriad Devil Ridge wants to copy me, they can do so without any scruples. I have this ability, so I'll set the rules. Those who don't have the ability to do so should obey obediently. As for bullying the weak, in terms of age, most of the cultivators in the core region are older than me. In terms of cultivation, Tianji suppressed my cultivation to the Heavenly 9th tier, so the strength I can exert is also at the Heavenly 9th tier. How can I be bullying the weak? Yun Qingyue said helplessly, that's what you say, but fellow Taoist's request is really too harsh. The major sects of the Myriad Devil Ridge have already lost a lot of blood the last time. If you do it again, the major sects will definitely not agree. On this point, the Divine Sea Realm cultivators have already reached a consensus. I know that fellow Taoist has encountered in the hunting ground and is feeling depressed and has suffered huge losses. It's understandable for you to make such a request, but fellow Taoist has already destroyed the encampment of 2 sects and killed many people. Lu Yi stared indifferently at her starry eyes. Fellow Taoist Yun, if you want to talk nonsense, you don't have to. I'll only wait here for 10 days. Chapter 545. On the Heavenly Sword Peak, Yun Qingyue still wanted to persuade him, but Lu Yi raised his hand and stopped her. I've already stated my conditions. It's up to you whether you agree or not. There's no need to discuss anything with me. Wu Jun stepped forward and said in a deep voice, what if we don't agree? Do you really have the guts to attack all the sects in the Myriad Devil Ridge? You think I don't dare? Lu Yi turned to look at Wu Jun. I believe fellow Lu has the ability to do so. Wu Jun stared back at him without flinching. A few months ago, so many Myriad Devil Ridge's core sects were destroyed and so many Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were killed. Lu Yi did have the ability to do so, but having the ability didn't mean he would do it. If he did, Grand Heaven Alliance wouldn't have an easy time. When the time came, the entire Spirit Stream battlefield would be in chaos. If Lu Yi had any sense, he wouldn't do such a brainless thing. You're right. It's unrealistic to attack all the sects in the Myriad Devil Ridge. Lu Yi changed the topic with a leisurely expression. However, there are so many sects in the core sections. Picking 30 or 50 of them won't affect the overall situation. Let's start with Snow Feather Sect and Wind Cloud Mansion. What do you two think? What did we do to provoke you? Yun Qingyue and Wu Jun's expressions changed slightly. If Lu Yi really did this, the myriad Devil Ridge wouldn't be able to deal with him. Compared to the number of sects in the core sects, 30 or 50 of them weren't a lot. Just as Lu Yi said, even if they attacked and occupied them, it wouldn't affect the overall situation. He had already done this a few months ago. At that time, he had attacked and occupied almost 30 sections. If he did it again, who knew which sect he would attack and occupy? If this matter didn't come to a conclusion, every sect in the core sects would feel a sense of urgency. No one dared to bet that their sects would be safe and sound. When the time came, Lu Yi would definitely be willing to pay a price to ensure the safety of their sections. As for Lu Yi saying that he wanted to start with Snow Feather Sect and Wind Cloud Mansion, this was a clear threat. How could Yun Qingyue and Wu Jun not understand? Yun Qingyue felt helpless. It seemed that there wasn't any special effect on her. Although this young man had looked at her when they first met, he didn't treat her well. How could he be so difficult to deal with at such a young age? He hurriedly said, "Fellow Taoist Lu, please calm down. Senior Marshal Brother Wu and I came here to discuss a plan that would satisfy everyone. How about this? The Myriad Devil Ridge is willing to offer a total of 3 million merit points. If fellow Taoist can accept it, I can have someone send it over right now. 3 million merit points worth of resources, even if calculated according to the price of the Tianji treasure vault, it was still a huge sum of resources. It was enough for any cultivator to enjoy for a lifetime. Although Cloud River tier cultivators could obtain more merit points than Spirit Stream tier cultivators, most Cloud River tier cultivators would only have a few thousand or 10,000 merit points. The terrifying number of merit points, 3 million, was enough to make any Cloud River tier cultivator feel breathless. Lu Ye's expression was calm. Previously, he had received 20 to 30 million merit points worth of goods from the Myriad Demon's Ridge. What was a mere 3 million merit points worth? That was a difference of nearly 10 times. The Myriad Demon Ridge's actions were no different from sending a beggar away. Although it seemed a little unreasonable for him to ask for such an exorbitant price, since ancient times, the two factions had been hostile to each other. Weakening the enemy's capital and strengthening oneself at the same time was something that everyone liked to see. Not to mention, there was a reason for this matter. Lu Yi did not speak, and Yun Qingyue did not speak either. She only waited silently. On the contrary, Wu Jun continued to play the bad guy. He said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoist Lu, 3 million merit points worth of goods is already the greatest sincerity that the Myriad Demon's Ridge can express. One cannot be too greedy. Fellow Taoist Yun." Lu Yi ignored Wu Jun and softly called out to Yun Qingyue. Yun Qingyue immediately put on a respectful posture. "Fellow Taoist Lu, please speak. If the Myriad Demon's Ridge really feels that it is difficult, I can also drop my previous proposal. It is convenient for you to give me goods worth 300,000 merit points." Not only was Yun Qingyue not happy, but her expression also became much more serious. "Does fellow Taoist Lu have any other conditions?" The other party suddenly said this, obviously waiting for her to say something. "Give me another golden body token, and this matter will end here." There was definitely more than one golden body token in the world. If Lu Yi could obtain it in the hunting ground, the Myriad Demon's Ridge would definitely have a reserve, but the quantity would definitely not be too much. This was a life-saving trump card for any cultivator. After experiencing the power of the golden body token, Lu Yi naturally could not forget it. Compared to the loss of the golden body token, the 100,000 merit points he spent in the hunting ground to invite the Pillar of Heaven's secrets was almost negligible. Merit points could be slowly accumulated, but the golden body token was something that could only be found by chance. Fellow Taoist Lu must be joking. I have never seen a golden body token in my life. Where would I find one for you? Wu Jun's face was gloomy. And even if there was one, the myriad demon's ridge would not give it to Lu Yi. This thing was useful even for the divine sea realm. After all, it was a protection bestowed by the heavens. Before the time limit was up, no one could break through the protection. Then there is no need to say more. You can choose one of the two options. Wu Jun growled, Lu Ye, we're here to negotiate with you. Don't push your luck. Lu Ye's fingers stroked the mountain pan saber, his eyes slightly drooping as he said, Do you two think that if I kill you here, the myriad demon's ridge will find a way to avenge you? Or do you two want to see if I can kill you? Wu Jun and Yun Qingyue's expressions changed and they both became vigilant. What made them rejoice was that Lu Yi did not show any signs of attacking. However, the other party was obviously impatient. If they continued to pester him here, this youth might really attack. If they really died here, it would be a waste. Lu Ye's hands were already stained with the blood of the myriad demon's ridge cultivators. Adding the two of them would not make much of a difference. Thinking of this, Yun Qingyue said, We will report our discussion with fellow Taoist Lu as soon as possible. If there is a result, I will inform fellow Taoist Lu. Saying so, she signaled to Wu Jun and the two of them flew out of Heavenly Sword Peak together. After flying for dozens of li, Yun Qingyue finally let out a long breath. Her chest heaved up and down. In that instant she had truly felt the aura of death. She never thought that she, a true Lake Realm cultivator, would be so powerless in front of a Cloud River Realm cultivator. Not far from her, Wu Jun's expression was normal, but there was a trace of lingering fear in his eyes. Send the message back and see what the Spirit Sea Realm cultivators choose, Yun Qingyue said. Wu Jun nodded silently. Immediately, the two of them began to pass the message of this discussion to the cultivators in their own encampments. Then, the cultivators in the encampments would pass the message back to the Nine State. However, the two of them knew that the myriad demon's ridge was going to bleed again unless they dared to ignore Lu Ye's threat. However, would anyone dare to ignore Lu Ye's threat? As he said, he would not attack all the encampments. He would only choose 30 to 50 of them. Who would dare to bet that their own encampment would not be the unlucky one? This was not a gamble. The most realistic problem was that Lu Ye was going to a myriad demon's ridge encampment and asking for safety money. If they did not pay, he would attack the encampment. How would they choose? Of course, they would pay. There was no need to even think about it. Compared to what they had to pay in their own encampments, what was a few 100,000, 200,000, or 300,000 merit points worth? In this way, Lu Ye would only need to spend some time to go to each of the encampment. He would also be able to achieve his goal without completely destroying the balance of the Spirit Stream battlefield. The two of them did not have to wait for too long. After less than half a day, they received a message. They both checked. As expected, the Spirit Sea Realm cultivators had compromised. Although they were helpless and humiliated, they did not have the right to refuse. However, the Myriad Demon's Ridge also had some requests. The message clearly stated that if Lu Ye did not agree to these requests, the Myriad Demon's Ridge was prepared to suffer losses on both sides. At that time, they would abandon all the encampments and gather the core forces to attack the encampments of the Grand Sky Alliance. This was a complete indiscriminate destruction. It was also the last bit of stubbornness on the part of the Myriad Demon's Ridge. After reading the message, Yun Qingyue sighed. She did not know whether Lu Ye would agree to these requests or not. Strictly speaking, the Myriad Demon's Ridge was at a disadvantage. If Lu Ye did not agree, no one could do anything to him. After pondering for a while, Yun Qingyue said, Senior Marshal Brother Wu, this time I will go by myself. Wait for me here. Now that they had a final plan, there was no need to play the bad guy. Otherwise, the atmosphere would be awkward again. How can that be? What if Lu Ye wants to attack you? How can you resist? Wu Jun immediately shook his head. Yun Qingyue said, with his strength, even if you and I join forces, we will not be his match. Hearing this, Wu Jun was filled with grief and indignation, but he could not refute it. Senior Marshal Brother Wu, wait for me here. I will go and come back quickly. That Lu Ye does not look like an unreasonable person. Be careful, Junior Marshal Sister. You and I will keep in touch. Wu Jun nodded. Yun Qingyue took out her flower basket spirit artifact and flew out on it. After a while, she arrived at the Heavenly Sword Peak. The young man was still sitting in the same place, holding a book in his hand and studying it carefully. The sunlight pierced through the sea of clouds and shone on the young man's face, giving him a scholarly aura. However, this was an opponent that gave the entire myriad Devil Ridge a headache. Moreover, he was holding a butcher's knife, ready to cut off a piece of flesh from the myriad Devil Ridge. Once this knife fell, all the core sects of the myriad Devil Ridge would not be able to escape. Fellow cultivator Lu. Yun Qingyu softly called out, and even reached out to stroke the hair by her ear. Her originally beautiful face, at this moment, actually had an additional trace of charm. Is there a result? Lu Ye did not even raise his head. He only looked at the contents of the book, making Yun Qingyue feel powerless. It was as if she had punched cotton. The Divine Sea Realm cultivators have discussed. We can agree to fellow cultivator Lu's request. However, we also have a request that we hope fellow cultivator Lu can agree to. As long as fellow cultivator Lu agrees to this request, all the things you want will be delivered in 2 days. Speak. The myriad Devil Ridge hopes that fellow cultivator Lu will not set foot on the Spirit Stream battlefield in the future. Chapter 546. On the Heavenly Sword Peak, Lu Yi closed the book in his hand and raised his head to look at Yun Qingyue. His gaze was calm, but the words that came out of his mouth were resolute and decisive. Leave. I won't kill you. Also, tell your Divine Sea Realm cultivators that as long as I'm still alive, I will come to the Spirit Stream battlefield every 6 months. I will select 30 sects from the core circle and attack their bases. As he spoke, he slowly stood up and summoned his flying spirit tool. From the looks of it, he was about to take action. Yun Qingyue was shocked and quickly shouted, Fellow Taoist Lu, please wait. Is there something else? Lu Yi tilted his head and looked at her. The myriad Devil Ridge wanted him to not set foot on the Spirit Stream battlefield in the future. This was a condition that he couldn't agree to no matter what. Even though he didn't need to set foot on the Spirit Stream battlefield after reaching the Cloud River realm, and he couldn't threaten the myriad Devil Ridge with anything from the Spirit Stream battlefield in the future, he could do it twice, but not thrice. Including this time, he had already blackmailed the myriad Devil Ridge twice. If he did it again, the myriad Devil Ridge would definitely not compromise and would fight to the death with Lu Yi. However, whether or not he set foot on the Spirit Stream battlefield was his own subjective choice. He didn't need the myriad Devil Ridge to force it on him. If the myriad Devil Ridge insisted on this condition, there was no room for negotiation. Looking at Lu Yi, Yun Qingyue felt powerless. In the end, she sighed and said, Fellow Taoist Lu, we can discuss this. She knew that since they had already reached this point, as one of the parties to the negotiation, they couldn't show any signs of weakness. However, they had no choice now. Lu Yi was about to leave, and if they didn't show any signs of weakness, the 30 myriad Devil Ridge forces would suffer. Lu Yi even said that he would come every 6 months. Who could endure that? If that really happened, the Spirit Stream realm cultivators of the core circle wouldn't have a stable place to cultivate in the future. The Spirit Stream realm was the foundation of every sect. If this foundation was broken, it would affect the foundation and future development of the entire sect. Standing on the spirit boat, Lu Yi looked at Yun Qingyue and didn't say anything. Yun Qingyue pursed her red lips, and only after a long while did she say, In the future, unless something similar to what happened at the hunting ground occurs again, fellow Taoist Lu must not attack the sect's encampment at the Spirit Stream battlefield for no reason. Compared to the previous harsh conditions, these conditions were much more lenient. They didn't restrict Lu Yi from entering and leaving the spirit stream battlefield, but correspondingly, they restricted him from attacking the sects of the myriad Devil Ridge. Otherwise, something like what had happened at the hunting ground would have to happen. Although it was just a simple sentence, Lu Yi could understand the myriad Demon Ridge's good intentions. It was obvious that he had not given up on killing him. In the hunting ground, there had been so many myriad Demon Ridge powerhouses with cultivations much higher than Lu Ye's. In the end, they had even used a secret technique on their tracking plates, leaving him with nowhere to hide. In the end, he had been surrounded by hundreds and thousands of people. Disregarding the grudges between the two factions, the myriad Demon Ridge had indeed gone too far in this matter. Lu Yi had been lucky enough to survive, but he had paid a great price to come to the Spirit Stream battlefield to seek revenge. No one could blame him for that. But in the future, if the myriad Demon Ridge tried to target Lu Yi again, they would definitely be more careful and would not give him another chance to retaliate. This is the bottom line of a Divine Sea cultivator. If fellow Taoist Lu cannot agree, then please leave. After Yun Qingyue finished speaking, she stared at Lu Yi nervously, not knowing if he would agree. Lu Yi calmly nodded. Sure, is there anything else? Although he knew that the myriad Demon Ridge side had not given up on killing him, to be honest, without such tempering on the road of cultivation, it would be too boring. Since stepping onto the road of cultivation, Lu Yi had always been fighting against opponents stronger than him. This was especially true after his identity as a disciple of the Blue Blood sect was exposed. All kinds of suppression had never stopped. It was also through this kind of tempering that he had been able to advance triumphantly and dominate the Spirit Stream battlefield. It was impossible for the myriad Demon Ridge side to be afraid of attacking him again because of this matter, and he was in no position to ask the myriad Demon Ridge to stop targeting him in the future. This was something that both of them knew, so there was no need to point it out. Seeing Lu Yi agree, Yun Qingyue let out a long sigh of relief and her expression relaxed a lot. She had always had a benevolent temperament and really didn't want to see too much blood. Also, every injustice has its perpetrator and every debt has its debtor. If fellow Taoist Lu wants to take revenge in the future, please find the right person and don't implicate some innocent sex. The cultivators who had made things difficult for Lu Yi in the hunting ground all had different origins, but one thing was certain, not all the disciples of the core circle sects had participated. As a result, Lu Ye's conditions this time targeted all the core circle sects, causing many forces to suffer an unexpected calamity. But they couldn't justify themselves. They couldn't say that their disciples didn't participate in the hunting ground incident and ask Lu Yi to be merciful, right? That would be a laughingstock. Of course. Lu Yi nodded. Is there anything else? Yun Qingyue shook her head. There's nothing else. She was slightly dazed. Was it settled just like that? She originally thought that Lu Yi wouldn't agree so easily. She had already prepared many persuasive words, but in the end, none of them came in handy. If there's nothing else, I have two conditions. Yun Qingyue's expression stiffened, and she said nervously, Please speak, fellow Taoist Lu. In the hunting ground, there's a guy called Xiaoyang who uses a saber. If I'm not wrong, he should be from the Wild Saber sect. I won't go to the Wild Saber sect's encampment, but tell them for me that in addition to 300,000 merit points, I also want 20 sets of saber cultivation experience. Otherwise, I don't mind making a trip. Yun Qingyue carefully noted it down. Okay. Saber cultivation experience was not valuable as long as it was not the only copy. Even if it was the only copy, it could be copied. In the Wild Saber sect, there was no lack of saber cultivation experience, so 20 sets could be easily taken out. Also, Wind Cloud Mansion's resources, at 100,000 merit points. Wind Cloud Mansion. Yun Qingyue was speechless. Wasn't Wind Cloud Mansion senior brother Wu Jun's sect? Lu Yi wanted to add 100,000 merit points to Wind Cloud Mansion's resources. This was clearly because he was angry at senior brother Wu Jun's bad attitude during the negotiation. This little guy seemed to be reasonable, but in fact, he was narrow-minded. There's a price to pay for playing bad cop. What do you think, fellow Taoist Yun? Lu Yi leisurely glanced at Yun Qingyue. Yun Qingyue smiled bitterly. It seems that fellow Taoist Lu has already seen through it. It was not a profound method to begin with, so there was nothing she could do even if she was seen through. Yun Qingyue sighed and said, I will report your 2 requests, but before that, I would like to ask you to sign a heavenly mystery contract. Okay. There was no guarantee, so signing a heavenly mystery contract was the best restriction. Yun Qingyue immediately took out the heavenly mystery contract, listed out a series of terms, and handed it to Lu Yi for inspection. Lu Yi carefully read it, and after confirming that there were no hidden traps, he pressed his handprint. Yun Qingyue also represented the myriad Devil Ridge and pressed her handprint. The heavenly mystery contract shone brightly, and the contract was established. After keeping the heavenly mystery contract, Yun Qingyue felt much more relaxed. To be honest, although she was only facing a Cloud River tier cultivator, the burden in her heart was unprecedentedly heavy. Now that the agreement was finally settled, the mission could be considered finished. Then, fellow Taoist Lu, farewell. Yun Qingyue gracefully bowed to Lu Yi, summoned her flower basket spirit tool, and flew away on it. Lu Yi watched her leave. After thinking for a moment, he did not continue reading. Instead, he walked to the side, took out a saber, and chopped down a large tree. He trimmed it flat, then chopped the tree into several sections, and busied himself. Time passed. 3 days later, Lu Yi, who was sitting upright on a rock and reading, suddenly spoke softly, "Leave the things behind. Whichever sect you belong to can take the wooden tablet. Consider it a return gift from me. When the 10 days are up, I will pay a visit to the sects whose wooden tablets are still here a visit." There was no one in front of him, but in his perception, there were some unfamiliar auras around him. These people were naturally here to deliver supplies, but they were intimidated by his reputation, and did not dare to show themselves for the time being. After hearing Lu Yi's words, they looked a few dozen feet in front of him. There were hundreds of wooden tablets, each carved with the name of a sect, corresponding to a different sect in the myriad Devil Ridge. These wooden tablets were carved by Lu Yi according to the markings on the map, so there was no omission. It was not for convenience, but to deepen his memory. There were so many sects in the myriad Devil Ridge, and through this method, Lu Yi more or less had some memory of the sects in the core region. In the future, if he encountered a cultivator from the myriad Devil Ridge, he could inquire about their sect and match their background. The people in the dark finally understood what Lu Yi meant. After a moment, someone revealed himself. He walked in front of Lu Yi and placed down a storage bag. Then, he took one of the many wooden tablets and fled. With someone taking the lead, soon more people walked out. They silently put down their storage bags and took the wooden tablets that belonged to their own sections. As time passed, more and more storage bags piled up in front of Lu Yi, and fewer wooden tablets were left behind. Every cultivator who came to deliver the goods could see the magnificent pile of storage bags. They all knew that the goods were worth tens of millions of merit points, but no one dared to be greedy. It had not been easy for them to reach an agreement with Lu Yi. If something were to happen at this time, not only would Lu Yi not be able to forgive them, even the myriad Devil Ridge camp would not be able to forgive the sect behind them. At some point, Lu Yi noticed that the wooden tablet of the Wild Blade sect had been taken away. He raised his hand and grabbed the storage bag that was just thrown away. He opened it and found that in addition to many valuables, there were 20 books of saber cultivation experience. Xiaoyang was indeed from the Wild Blade sect. Otherwise, the Wild Blade sect would not have admitted defeat so easily. The last time he went to the Wild Blade sect, he only got 10 books of saber cultivation experience. Lu Yi excitedly flipped through a book of saber cultivation experience. It was a pity that there were no sects in the Humane Alliance that specialized in saber cultivation. Otherwise, he could go to the Humane Alliance to further his studies. He would not have to go through so much trouble to ask for saber cultivation experience. What's more, what Lu Yi gave was definitely not the best. With Lu Ye's current strength and attainments in saber arts, these saber arts cultivation experiences would certainly be of some help to him, but it would be difficult for him to make a breakthrough in saber arts. It would be great if the Humane Alliance could one day attack and occupy the Wild Blade sect. Of course, this was only a dream. The Wild Blade sect was a first-grade sect with a strong foundation. It was not easy to attack and occupy. Chapter 547. Before the 10 days were up, there were only 2 wooden tokens left in the 7 days since Lu Ye's announcement. This meant that there were only 2 sects in the core circle that did not come. The words engraved on these 2 wooden tokens were New Moon Sect and Cloud Sun Sect respectively. These 2 sects would not come again. Their base had been destroyed and their disciples were dead or injured. Why would they come to deliver supplies to Lu Yi? Lu Yi had expected this and did not mind. He got up and stretched. After several days of rest, he was full of energy. Since the matter at the Spirit Stream battlefield was over, there was no need to stay here any longer. However, before he left, he could take a look at Hua Ci. He wondered how she was doing now. It was about time for her to advance to the Cloud River realm. He took out his spirit boat and flew towards the 10,000 Poisons forest. On the Heavenly Sword Peak, the wind howled, leaving only 2 wooden tokens with different names engraved on them. Lu Yi had seized a great deal of the Myriad Demon's Ridge's resources here twice. Due to that, Heavenly Sword Peak became a thorn in the hearts of many cultivators from the Myriad Demon's Ridge. Many years later, whenever the cultivators from the Myriad Demon's Ridge passed by this place, they would take a detour around it. They would never recklessly step foot on Heavenly Sword Peak. The 10,000 Poisons forest was in the core circle and was not too far from the Heavenly Sword Peak. A day later, when Lu Yi leisurely arrived above the 10,000 Poisons forest, he could not help but be surprised. He found that the 10,000 Poisons forest was different from before. The most obvious change was that the entire 10,000 Poisons forest seemed to have shrunk by a lot. The area that used to be shrouded in poisonous fog was now a safe place. Overall, it had shrunk by at least 30 to 40%. This was the forbidden area of the Spirit Stream battlefield, a place that cultivators were not willing to step into easily. Not only was there a poisonous fog that could kill people, but there were also all kinds of poisonous insects that lived in the poisonous forest. Even the cultivators of Tianjiu were unable to penetrate too deep. Was the shrinking of the 10,000 Poisons forest related to Hua Ci? Lu Yi knew that Hua Ci's cultivation needed to refine the poisonous fog. However, only a few months had passed and the 10,000 Poisons forest had become like this. If Hua Ci was given more time, wouldn't this forbidden area disappear completely? This woman was really terrifying. He went straight into the forest and went deep inside. When he reached the wooden house in the forest, he saw a small courtyard with a tall fence and a tightly shut door. Lu Yi went forward and knocked on the door. "Is anyone home?" There was no response. After probing for a bit, he found that there was no sign of life in the wooden house. "Hua Ci is not here?" Lu Yi was a little surprised. He thought that Hua Ci had always been cultivating here. He did not expect that she would disappear without a trace. Now, he did not know where she went. Pushing open the door, he walked into the house and looked around. Everything in the house was spotless, which meant that Hua Ci was still living here, but he didn't know what she was doing now. Walking out of the house, Lu Yi thought for a moment and headed to the place where Hua Ci had been cultivating. When she lived here before, Hua Ci didn't cultivate in the house because there was an array set up by Lu Yi. As long as the array was maintained, it could isolate the corrosive poisonous fog, making it inconvenient for her to cultivate. After walking for a short distance, Lu Yi suddenly heard a soft singing voice and the sound of flowing water. This woman seems to be in a good mood. I wonder what she's doing. He retracted his aura and concealed his figure, preparing to scare her. She had been here all by herself for several months without any communication with the outside world. She hadn't sent him any messages either, so it was clear that she didn't know that he had come to the Spirit Stream battlefield. Suddenly appearing in front of her at this time would definitely give her a pleasant surprise. Following the source of the singing voice, Lu Yi passed through a patch of low shrubs and looked up. His expression stiffened. There was a pool there at some point. The pool was not very big, only a few feet in length and width. The water in the pool rippled with an abnormal green color. Just looking at the pool gave off an extremely uncomfortable feeling. It was easy to imagine how poisonous the water in the pool was. Lu Yi did not know how Hua Xi had created this pool of poisonous water. When he and Yi were here, this pool had not been there. It was clearly Hua Xi's work. More importantly, Hua Xi was bathing in the pool at this moment. Her entire body was almost submerged in the pool, and only the area above her neck was exposed. Her two white and tender arms swayed gently on the surface of the water, and occasionally, a few delicate toes floated mischievously on the surface of the water. She was softly humming an unknown song. Just by looking at her current state, Lu Yi could already imagine what she looked like. If he was discovered, wouldn't he be treated as a hoodlum and beaten up? He did not expect to see such a scene when he ran over. Just as he was about to quietly retreat, the singing voice suddenly stopped. Immediately afterward, Lu Yi felt a pair of sharp eyes staring at the place where he was hiding. He immediately had an ominous feeling. With a splash, Hua Xi waved her hand and a green water arrow flew out of the pool, aiming at Lu Ye's location with unparalleled precision. Should I hide? Or should I not hide? At this moment, Lu Ye's heart was in knots. If he hid, it would make him look guilty, but if he did not hide, he would definitely be exposed. Before he could make a decision, the water arrow hit his chest. It did not cause any damage, but the water arrow suddenly turned into a green mist and wrapped around Lu Ye's body, breaking his concealment. Then, Lu Yi felt a large amount of gray mystignite in his innate skill tree. In the pool, Hua Xi, who only had her head exposed, covered her mouth and exclaimed, "I was wondering what kind of little beast it was. It turns out to be a beast." She looked very shocked, and words that were even more poisonous than the pool water came out of her mouth. "Don't give me that!" Lu Yi huffed. "Besides me, who else can enter this damned place? You already guessed it was me, so stop pretending." This could be seen from the fact that the water arrow did not cause any damage. Hua Xi knew that Lu Yi was immune to poison, so the water arrow's main point was the poison, not its own damage. Of course, if the one who came was not Lu Yi, he would probably be waiting for death at this moment. The poison in the pool water was several times stronger than the poison Lu Yi had experienced in the forest of 1,000 poisons. "I don't know, how would I know?" Hua Xi pursed her lips and chuckled, reaching out to play with the water. "But why are you here? Isn't the Cloud River battlefield fun?" "Fun, it's too fun." Since his whereabouts had been exposed, Lu Yi simply walked forward to the other side of the pool, squatted down, and scooped up some water. The gray mist on his innate skill tree increased. Considering that his innate skill tree did not have much fuel left, Lu Yi did not dare play around anymore, otherwise, he would definitely be taken advantage of by Hua Xi. "Something happened, so I came here. I thought I'd come to see you on the way." So it was just on the way. Hua Xi's expression suddenly became bitter. If someone who did not know the situation saw this, they would probably think that Lu Yi had done something to her and then abandoned her. As she spoke, her hands did not stop moving. Her slender neck, white and tender skin, and some other beautiful things were faintly discernible. Coupled with her wet hair and sorrowful expression, it was truly captivating. If someone said that she did not do it on purpose, Lu Yi would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. Do I look good? Hua Xi's cheeks flushed red. Under Lu Ye's gaze, she lowered her head slightly, looking very shy. Do you want to see more? Lu Yi immediately perked up. Can I? Hua Xi's head was still lowered, her voice as soft as a mosquito's. Of course not for others, but if it's you, it doesn't matter. As she said this, she gently closed her eyes. Her long eyelashes trembled uneasily, and then she slowly stood up. The dark green pool water slid down her smooth neck, outlining the most beautiful scene in the world. Lu Ye's eyes widened to the size of copper bells. Ha 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 ha, you big idiot! Standing in the pool, Hua Xi, dressed in a dress, laughed and laughed as much as she could, mocking him. Lu Yi painfully closed his eyes. I, who had expectations of this woman, am really a piece of trash. But who would have thought that the woman who was soaking in the pool in such an environment would actually be fully clothed? Lu Yi stood up and turned to leave. Hua Xi shouted from behind, Hey, where are you going? It's none of your business. His heart, which was ready to enjoy the beautiful scenery, was lifted high and then slammed to the ground, shattering into pieces. Do you think I don't care about my face? A moment later, a neatly dressed Hua Xi appeared in the small wooden house. She saw Lu Yi lying on a hammock in the small courtyard, his head resting on his hands as he looked at the sky in boredom. Wrapped in a fragrant wind, Hua Xi walked to Lu Ye's side and leaned over to look at him. Are you angry? What's there to be angry about? Lu Yi rolled his eyes. I'm hungry, go make something to eat. Although the food Hua Xi made didn't look very good, the taste and effect were very good, and they were all very nutritious. Okay. Hua Xi said, her already bent body even lower. Before Lu Yi could come back to his senses, he was suddenly kissed on the forehead. Before she could retreat, Lu Yi grabbed her arm. Hua Xi was puzzled. What are you doing? What are you doing? Aren't you angry? I'm apologizing to you, she said matter-of-factly. Am I a child? Do I need you to kiss me on the forehead? Lu Ye's face was full of resentment. It was clearly a way to comfort a child. Then what do you want? Lu Ye's eyes moved down and stared at her red lips. A trace of panic flashed in Hua Xi's eyes, and her breathing quickened slightly. But soon, she put on an indifferent look and looked at Lu Yi with a smile. Her beautiful eyes were as bright as the stars. Time passed little by little, and the two of them remained motionless in this position. After a long while, Lu Yi released her. Hua Xi jumped back and instinctively sneered. Coward! Get over here! Lu Yi flew into a rage. Don't even think about it. Hua Xi chuckled and ran even farther. The soft song sounded again, and Hua Xi's mood was obviously better. In a moment, the small courtyard was filled with the fragrance of food. Chapter 548. Not long after, in the small courtyard, Lu Yi was stuffing himself with food. The gray mist on the innate skill tree was ferocious, and it looked like he would have to replenish it later. Hua Xi sat across from him, occasionally giving him some food. She even said, The world of flowers is mesmerizing, eat more. Lu Yi pretended not to hear. Where are Yi and Hupo? Why don't I see them? They went back to the encampment, Lu Yi replied as he took off 2 storage pouches from his waist and casually tossed them onto the table. Hua Xi picked them up and opened them. She said in surprise, There are so many things. Which sect did you rob this time? Each storage pouch contained resources from a first-rank sect. The 2 storage pouches were worth a total of 600,000 merit points. Of course, if these things were sold to the Tianji treasury, the value would be at least halved. Lu Yi raised his hand and drew a circle. All the sects in the core region. Not a single one escaped. Hua Xi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. How did they offend you? It's a long story. There's no need to talk about it. As for how he had been chased in the hunting ground and had been forced to use the golden body medallion, he naturally didn't need to tell Hua Xi about it. It would only make her worry for no reason. I don't need these things for my cultivation. If you don't need them, then sell them and get some merit points. When we return to the Cloud River battlefield, they'll be useful. Hua Xiai thought for a moment, then nodded. All right, then I'll accept them. What's up with the poisonous water? Lu Yi asked casually. That's the source of the poison in the forest of 1,000 poisons. I accidentally discovered it, so I drew it out. Cultivating like this is much more efficient than simply refining the poisonous mist. It was precisely because he could refine the energy in the pool that the forest of 1,000 poisons had shrunk in such a short time. The changes in the forest of 1,000 poisons had already attracted the attention of many people, but no one knew what was going on. After all, in the spirit stream tier, only Lu Yi could enter and leave this place unscathed. No one else could enter this place. Lu Yi was curious. You're already at the Heaven 9 tier, how can you cultivate? Heaven 9 tier was already at the peak of the Spirit Stream tier. At this tier, unless one reached the Cloud River tier, there was no way to continue cultivating. I have my ways. Hua Xiai pursed her lips. You want to refine all of the origin of poison in this place before advancing to the Cloud River realm? Of course. It's rare to have such an environment for cultivation. Naturally, we have to make good use of it. Is there a similar environment in the Cloudy River battlefield? Not really. I'll keep an eye out for you later. It's also fine if you have the Yao core of a demonic beast. Some demonic beasts' Yao cores are extremely poisonous. You might have something like that in the Heavenly Fate treasure trove. When you reach the Cloud River tier, you can go and buy some. I'll keep an eye out for you. Suddenly, something occurred to him, and he asked, Have you reached the Spirit Stream list? Hua Xiai winked at him playfully. I've been at the top of the Spirit Stream ranking for several months now. Didn't you know? Lu Yi was stunned beyond words. The Spirit Stream champion? You? Don't look down on me. Hua Xiai waved 2 fingers in front of him. Lu Yi was certain that Hua Xiai had the strength to reach the Spirit Stream list. Back in the forest of 1,000 poisons, she had killed quite a few cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge. However, if she had been able to occupy the Spirit Stream list for a few months, it would have been somewhat surprising. Of course, Hua Xiai wouldn't joke about something like that with Lu Yi. First, Lu Yi from the Jade Blood sect had occupied the Spirit Stream list for several months. Now, Hua Xiai from the Jade Blood sect had occupied the top spot. Furthermore, from the looks of it, it seemed that she would continue to occupy the top spot for quite some time. That was especially true considering that Hua Xiai had told the public that she was a medical cultivator. Lu Yi really wanted to know how the cultivators of the 9 Heavens continent were feeling right now. Since ancient times, medical cultivators had rarely been able to reach the top 50 of the Spirit Stream list. However, Hua Xiai had actually occupied the top spot. However, after thinking about it carefully, although Hua Xiai was a medical cultivator, after receiving the complete legacy, her medical cultivation had become different from that of ordinary medical cultivators. Most medical cultivators would cultivate magic cultivation or some other schools of thought. That was the only way they could protect themselves to a certain degree. However, Hua Xiai didn't cultivate any schools of thought. Strictly speaking, she could be considered a poison doctor. Since ancient times, medicine and poison were closely related. However, Hua Xiai, a poison doctor, was completely different from a poison doctor in the general sense. If she wanted to, even her breath could be laced with poison, let alone touch the body. With such a foundation, occupying the top spot of the Spirit Stream list wasn't a problem at all. The cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge who challenged her didn't even get to see her face before they were poisoned to the point of dizziness. They had no choice but to admit defeat and run for their lives. After several such incidents, no one dared to challenge Hua Xi's position anymore. What the myriad Devil Ridge wanted to know was where this medical cultivator from the Jade Blood sect was hiding. Up until now, no one had seen her on the Spirit Stream battlefield. She hadn't even appeared in any of the sect's encampments. Although Lu Yi was a nightmare for the myriad Devil Ridge, He would at least show his face in public and stir up trouble. However, Hua Ci was simply an unsolvable mystery. Looking at the entire Spirit Stream battlefield, the Jade Blood sect from the War Province had been like a huge mountain pressing down on the heads of the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators for the past 2 years. It was so heavy that it made it difficult for them to breathe. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Lu Yi stretched lazily with a satisfied expression on his face. As Hua Ci cleaned up the dishes, she asked, "Are we leaving? You should come to the Cloud River battlefield soon. I'll wait for you there." "Okay. By the way, do you still have the myriad poison pill you gave me last time? That thing could display great killing power under certain circumstances. For example, in the Myriad Beast Realm's secret realm, if Lu Yi hadn't taken out the myriad poison pill, Fierce Nyo wouldn't have been able to deal with him. Although this thing could kill both friend and foe, if used well, it could also turn the tables in an adverse situation." "I do." As Hua Ci spoke, she reached into her clothes and pulled out a handful of green myriad poison pills that still had her body temperature. Lu Ye's eyelids twitched as he looked at the dozen or so myriad poison pills. He didn't stand on ceremony with Hua Ci, and took 3 of them and put them in his storage space. "Take more. I can refine them at any time," Hua Ci advised. "No need. A few for self-defense is enough." Although Hua Ci didn't know what price she had to pay to refine these myriad poison pills, she was certain that these things weren't easy to come by and naturally couldn't be squandered. "Let's go." Lu Yi turned around and waved his hand. He took out his spirit boat and stepped onto it. Spirit energy surged and it soared into the sky. Hua Ci stood in place and looked up. Suddenly, she raised her hand to her mouth and shouted, "Husband, be careful." On the spirit boat, Lu Yi staggered and almost fell. He lowered his head and glared fiercely at Hua Ci, only to see her smiling beautifully. After watching Lu Ye's figure disappear, Hua Ci stretched her body, revealing her beautiful and graceful figure. She was going to be alone again. However, in the past few months, she had become familiar with this kind of life and didn't feel too lonely. However, she should still work hard on her cultivation and try to completely refine the source of deadly poison so that she could meet up with him at the Cloud River battlefield. In any case, she was a medical cultivator. If she stayed by his side, she could help him treat his injuries. The sky was clear and the scenery was picturesque. Lu Yi sped along. The journey was calm and peaceful. He left the core circle, entered the inner circle, and then circled around the outer circle before returning to the encampment. Actually, after leaving the 10,000 Poison Forest, he could have used the nearby Tianji Business Alliance's Tianji Pillar to directly teleport back to the encampment. However, that would have cost him a lot of merit points. Since he had nothing to do recently and couldn't enter the Cloud River battlefield, he didn't waste the money. 3 days later, Lu Yi arrived at the encampment of the Jade Blood sect. Just as he entered the protective array, he heard the crisp cry of an eagle. He looked up at the Spirit Mountain, not far away, and saw a familiar figure standing there, looking at him. Xiao Hui had returned. Lu Yi set up his spirit tool and flew towards the Spirit Mountain. He arrived at the eagle's nest and fed Xiao Hui a few fish he caught from the Moon Lake, teasing it for a while. After a while, he entered the Tianji Hall. Along the way, there were many disciples who respectfully bowed to him. Some were from the sect, while others were from other sections. There were even female cultivators with fiery personalities who took the initiative to talk to him. They looked at Lu Yi with eyes full of worship. After sending away those cultivators, Lu Yi stood in front of the Tianji pillar and placed his hand on it. His mind connected to the Tianji treasure house. He wanted to sell some things to the Tianji treasure house so that he could ensure that he had enough merit points to use. This time, he received a total of 20 to 30 million merit points from the 10,000 Devil Ridge. Even if he sold everything to the Tianji treasure house at a 50% discount, he would still be able to obtain 10 million merit points. However, Lu Yi naturally wasn't going to sell everything. He only needed enough merit points to use temporarily. The rest would be left to his second senior sister to ensure the development of the sect. Especially with his second senior sister's Spirit C stage cultivation, she would need a huge amount of resources to cultivate. When cultivators were in the Spirit Stream stage, they could cultivate in the Spirit Stream battlefield. When they reached the Cloud River stage, they could enter the Cloud River battlefield. However, when they reached the True Lake stage, there was no specific battlefield. Lu Yi wasn't particularly clear about how True Lake stage and Spirit Sea stage cultivators cultivated. However, it was said that it was related to a sex heritage. The stronger the sex heritage, the faster the True Lake stage and Spirit Sea stage cultivators' cultivation. Therefore, in the entire 9 continents, those powerful sects had generations of powerhouses. On the other hand, those weaker sects could only slowly accumulate and develop, waiting for the day when they could leap over the Dragon Gate. With Shui Yuan's talent, she was already qualified to reach the Spirit Sea stage. However, until half a year ago, she was still a True Lake stage 9th order cultivator. It wasn't that she didn't have enough talent. It was just that the Jade Blood sect was too weak and didn't have enough resources to support her cultivation. However, with the rise of Lu Yi, the Jade Blood sect's good days had arrived. Back then, Lu Yi pulled together a Grand Heaven Alliance army in the inner circle and fought everywhere. He forced the 10,000 Devil Ridge to compromise and contribute a batch of resources to calm the situation.